Great Tribal Chief. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201, God in number 039:S guidance. Shi Xiong knew exactly what these alchemists of this era wanted most. It is no exaggeration to say that although the alchemists of this era are not as fanatical as those in the European Middle Ages, they are definitely not comparable to ordinary people. Almost everyone who can become an alchemist is extremely determined and never talks about failure lightly. It's as if the four alchemists under his own hands have spent several years in the New World as a contract slave life comparable to hell, and the jack in front of him has his legs broken by the nobles. But even in this way, none of the four of them said that I would quit, that I would go home. For them, the unknown and full of mystery alchemy is the supreme path they pursue. As long as they can be given some pointers on alchemy, which is the germination of modern science, they will definitely abandon everything and follow them without hesitation. For them, even a little progress in alchemy is the greatest affirmation for them. Just like Jack Williams, this guy has a fanatical pursuit of mechanics. Of course, this aspect is not called machinery industry in this era, but collectively called alchemy. In their eyes, since other alchemy, that is, the so-called chemical and physical alchemy, cannot produce the sage's stone, it needs to break through from other aspects. The machinery industry is just another interesting industry. Once a determined alchemist like Jack Williams gets in, it is almost impossible to climb out. The alchemists of this era, or sprouting scientists, have a passion and enthusiasm for investigating the unknown, which people of later generations cannot understand. That's why Shi Xiong proposed gear transmission to Jack Williams. Whether it is east or west, the application of gears and transmission appeared long ago. But because there is no corresponding scientific theory, the application of gears and transmission was not popular before the 17th century. But after the French Philippe de la Hille put forward the theory that the involute can be used as a tooth profile in 1694, the application of gears and transmission began to have a solid theoretical foundation. It is worth mentioning that the Philippe de la Hille who put forward this theory is also an alchemist. With the support of the involute theory, in 1733, another French alchemist, M. Camus, published the Camus theorem, which further consolidated the foundation of gear applications. But at this time, the application of gears and transmission is still not very extensive. It was not until this year, that is, in 1765, that the Swiss mathematician Leonhard Euler proposed the mathematical basis for the analysis of the involute tooth profile and clarified the radius of curvature and curvature of the tooth profile curve of a pair of meshing gears, the relationship between the center position. It was not until another mathematician Savary developed the famous Euler-Savary equation on the basis of Euler's theory that the application of gears and transmission was completely opened. The reason why once improved steam engine can be promoted on a large scale is also because the Euler-Savary equation solves the problem of gear application. Otherwise, the steam engine will appear, but it will not be able to achieve effective transmission. The steam engine is just a decoration. Therefore, at this time, before the Euler-Savary equation appeared, the gear transmission method was almost equivalent to a magical technique for a mechanical research fanatic. In the past, Shi Xiong studied this theory when he was in college. Later, after going to work, there were also several machinery and equipment left by the Jiangnan Manufacturing Bureau in the museum. In order to properly maintain these precious cultural relics, Shi Xiong did not study this aspect less knowledge, naturally, have an understanding of gear transmission. Although Shi Xiong is not proficient in this aspect, what he understands in this era is an out-and-out magical technique. Just like the Euler-Vasari equation, there are also the calculation formula of gear modulus, pitch modulus calculation formula, the calculation formula of index circle diameter, etc. These formulas are popular things in later generations. Even the students in vocational and technical schools have also learned these formulas. But in this era, for the alchemists in Europe, only God can know these formulas. So, When Shi Xiong proposed the Euler-Vasari equation to Jack, his eyes became straight. Because of the limitations of the times, it is not difficult to make any inventions in this era. Many inventions and creations are only derived from a single idea or a flash of inspiration. The difficulty lies in how you present the moment of inspiration. It's like 99 years ago, in 1666, when the 23-year-old Newton was temporarily closed because of the Black Death in Cambridge Trinity College where he was studying. Newton returned to his mother's house and was meditating in the garden, the apple to his head. Although whether Newton was hit in the head by apple at the time has not yet been finalized, it is undeniable that Newton must have been inspired by something at the time. www.wuxiaspot.com. And then he had it. The emergence of the law of universal gravitation. If an alchemist like Jack gives him an inspiration or an opportunity for inspiration, then he may not be unable to come up with any outstanding scientific theories. For opportunities like this, Shi Xiong has so many in his hands. At least the Euler-Vasari equation he has taken out now does not exist. For Jack Williams, who is proficient in mechanical manufacturing, it is absolutely no less than the apple that hit Newton's head. Give Jack Williams knowledge points about mechanics. And for Jean Auguste, who likes pharmacology, Stone Bear naturally has a way to keep his heart. Although the Frenchman Jean Auguste is also an alchemist, he is actually a pharmacist. He prefers to study some weird medicines. The British alchemist Bill Gates took the path of a traditional alchemist, but compared to the French alchemist David Adian, who was proficient in metal smelting, Brother Lee was more interested in chemical experiments. Of course, in this era, chemistry is just a rudimentary form. Although the British alchemist Robert Boyle published a landmark book in the history of chemistry as early as 1661, The Skeptical Chemist, and later generations also regarded this year as the beginning of modern chemistry. A word is just a noun. But whether it was medicine, chemistry or metal smelting, Shi Xiong had a lot of knowledge of later generations in his mind. This kind of knowledge that will be learned by junior high school students in later generations is truly God's guidance in this age. Therefore, Shi Xiong was more certain about keeping the four of them. P.S. I would like to thank you for the reward of I can't change this in my life 500. Chapter 202, Both Children. Jack Williams was unsurprisingly overwhelmed by Stone Bear. This guy has quite a good amount of alcohol. The two of them drank more than 2 caddies. This alchemist from England was completely brought down. He didn't know what he was muttering in his mouth. Anyway, he fell asleep soundly with a smile on his face. What Shi Xiong drank was also a little dizzy. If in a previous life, he would have no problem making a pound of wine with over 50 degrees. I don't know how many times this body is stronger in this life than the body in the previous life, but this body is not as strong as the tolerance of high alcohol. So after a caddy of wine, Shi Xiong also feels a bit stunned. When he came out of Ferguson's room, the sun was already hanging in the western half of the sky. Quietly in the tribe, except for the barking of cattle and the occasional dog barking in the distance, there is only a faintly audible snoring in the whole tribe. Today's wine-tasting party successfully brought down most of the people. This scene also made Shi Xiong's face a smile. Anyway, his arrival has brought a big change to this small tribe, and success often starts with change. When he was about to reach his house, Shi Xiong saw Sheila ran back with Tep, who had been fattened in a circle, with a little difficulty. After seeing the owner, Sheila happily took Tep and ran to the side of the Stone Bear, a tail that was not too thick and turned as fast as a small windmill. "Yeah, did you take your son to find milk again? You're really responsible for being a mother." Shi Xiong knelt down, stroking Sheila's head and neck affectionately, and Sheila squinted her eyes with enjoyment. Tep grows very fast. In a month's time, this guy's weight has at least doubled. Sheila is a hound, and now it's a bit difficult to hold this little fat man in his mouth. The lactation period of bears is very long, even longer than that of humans. It takes at least 1.5 years for cubs from birth to weaning, and some even 2 years. Although Sheila is a very conscientious nurse, she is a dog after all, and the puppy's weaning time is only a month, so after more than a month, Sheila has no milk. But son Tep can't eat without milk. Although Sheila is wondering why her fat son can eat so much, She is out of milk and can't leave her hungry. His son is so hungry these few nights that Sheila has been holding her son everywhere to give it to him. Find milk to drink. Fortunately, there are also many dogs in the Gaoshu tribe. Several mother dogs have just given birth to their babies, so Tep finally has a few more nurses. At the beginning, those dog mothers also didn't accept Tep. There was no way Stone Bear could only deal with these dog mothers using the method he had previously dealt with Sheila. This made Tep not hungry. The good news is that among the bison captured and tamed by the soldiers last winter, 3 of them were already carrying their cubs, and these 3 cows were about to give birth. Once these 3 cows are left with calves, then Tep will not worry about running out of milk. Tep, who was squeezed in his mouth, raised his head and stared with a pair of small eyes, looking at his owner. He also made an immature "oh" sound in his mouth, as if he was also begging for caress. This is a heartless guy. When Shi Xiong went to Ferguson at noon, this guy was still hungry and barked. Now that he was full and drunk, he started to seek other stimulation. But this first 1.5-month-old bear cub is really cute, so cute that people can't refuse. The stone bear laughed, picked up the bear cub, held it in front of his face and kissed him twice. It is estimated that Tep was smoked by the smell of wine from his father's mouth, and he screamed and wanted to avoid him. But after all, it was just a little bear cub, and it was far from reaching adulthood, so in the claws of its father, it could not hide, and it was smoked with a look of lovelessness. Shi Xiong put Tep on his shoulder and held it with one hand and smiled and said, "Walk, let's go home and sleep." After that, Shi Xiong supported Tep, who was lying on his shoulders. She walked home and said to Sheila at the same time, "Girl, go home." Sheila obediently followed Shi Xiong behind her, but the expression on Sheila's face was not very good. It seemed that the smell on her father made Sheila too not adapted. For Tep and Sheila, Stone Bear really likes them. Since he came to this world, the real family members are the uncle Jiao Niu, but the uncle is just an uncle after all, and Jiao Niu is still busy to survive, so Shi Xiong's heart has always been very empty. Even though Shi Xiong felt a lot better after meeting Bai Yun, he felt that something was missing deep in his heart, and it was this unexplained shortcoming that always made Shi Xiong some inexplicable irritability at certain inexplicable times. It's like the last time I went to the fortress of Okran. Shi Xiong finally adopted the method of attracting the crocodile to swallow the French prisoners. In fact, it is a very cruel and even torture method. If this method is used in later generations, iron crimes against humanity, and a large part of the reason that Shi Xiong adopts this method is because this inexplicable irritability affects him. However, after adopting Tep and Sheila, Shi Xiong discovered that his heart was unconsciously peaceful, and the irritability that appeared from time to time was now less and less. The 2 little guys who appeared inadvertently gave Shi Xiong a feeling of having children. Although this body is only 16 or 17 years old this year, the soul is after all an old ghost who has lived 36 years and has undergone the baptism of modernization. Although Shi Xiong did not have a family or children in his previous life, www.wuxiaspa.com. He saw a lot of things in this regard. Whether it was his sister's family or other friends, Shi Xiong could clearly feel the beauty of children. Although most bear children will do things that make adults feel helpless and even angry, but it is undeniable that even if they are able to be bear children, they are the most precious treasures in their parents' hearts, and there is nothing to replace them. And only those who have children can be called a complete person. No matter in his previous life or in this life, Shi Xiong had never had a child of his own, but the joining of these 2 little guys made Shi Xiong feel a real feeling of being a father. Although Tep and Sheila are just a bear and a dog, Stone Bear has unknowingly regarded them as their own children. And it's still both sons and daughters. Later zoologists have proved that pets can clearly feel the emotions of their owners. Shi Xiong is in a good mood now, and Sheila, who is next to him, can naturally feel it, so Sheila's tail is wagging happily, while the little bear cub Tep is lying on his father's shoulders and stretching his neck hard, and then stick out his tongue to lick his daddy. This little guy is worthy of being the offspring of a top predator. Although he is only 1.5 months old, the stone bear can clearly feel the thorns on Tep's tongue. Bears have fleshy spurs on their tongues, which ensures that they can easily lick the flesh off their bones when eating. But Tep is still young after all. His tongue with fleshy thorns licked his face, but it made Shi Xiong feel some irritation, which was quite comfortable. Today, the successful brewing of high-quality wine, and Jack Williams's heart, made Shi Xiong's mood very good. Now that his son and daughter are playing around him again, this makes Shi Xiong's mood even better. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203, Go Home. Mr. Guardian, if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would really think that I came to heaven. The scenery here is so beautiful. Even in England, it is rare to see such a beautiful and vibrant scenery. Jack Williams standing beside Shi Xiong, he praised softly. He looked greedily at everything in front of him, and the look of desire on his face was obvious. Jack, in fact, I also agree with what you said. Yes, this is a land full of vitality. Although it is located in the deep mountains and not as prosperous as the cities in your colony, it has what your colony does not have: freedom and vitality. Shi Xiong turned his head slowly, looking at the four alchemists standing behind him. So, I sincerely hope that you can stay and make this beautiful land even better. Wonderful. David Adian returned to the tribe with a tired body at noon yesterday, and the warriors who came back with him completely turned into savages. It can be seen that David Adian, who went out to find a lead zinc mine, has really suffered a lot in the past month. But the news that David brought back was exciting. He found a lead zinc mine, and the location of this lead zinc mine was not too far away from the Gaoshu tribe. The lead zinc mine was found thanks to an veteran soldier who followed David Adian. This veteran warrior has a relative in the Liquingshan tribe, the tribe that was previously separated from the Gaoshu tribe and was rich in sulfur. This warrior led David Adian to the Liquingshan tribe more than 10 days ago, where he got news about lead zinc ore, and then found it in a valley about 2 kilometers away from the Liquingshan tribe. A lead zinc mine. It is no wonder that the symbiosis of the two metals lead and zinc is extremely common in nature, and lead zinc mines usually have strong sulfur affinity. And there's a sulfur mine near the Liquingshan tribe, although the scale is not very large. But it's no surprise that lead zinc mines can be found near Liquingshan. After David Adian came back, Stone Zhong asked Hong Yun and asked where the Liquingshan tribe was. After Hong Yun's statement, Shi Xiong realized that the location of the Liquingshan tribe was not far from the location where the hematite ore was found. Shi Xiong realized that there was a hematite ore, sulfur ore and lead zinc ore in that area. It is estimated that there should be pyrite and other mineral deposits nearby. The Appalachian Mountains are a treasure mountain, which is a well-known thing. The Origini in ancient times not only created this mountain range stretching more than 3,000 kilometers, but also endowed it with numerous mineral resources. Coal and iron are the richest mineral resources in the Appalachian Mountains. But there are also many metal deposits such as lead, zinc, and copper. It is not surprising that lead zinc mines can be found near the Liquingshan tribe. In any case, David Adian found a lead zinc mine, so there will be no shortage of musket pellets in the future. If there is enough copper in this lead zinc mine, Shi Xiong's options will be even greater. David's return and bringing back the good news made Shi Xiong feel good. Last night, Shi Xiong made a table of good dishes by himself, and invited 4 alchemists, their families and Lieutenant Ferguson to have a meal. Early this morning, Stone Zhong brought these 4 alchemists to the half mountain of the Great Smoky Mountain to the south of the tribe, and looked at the beautiful land below condescendingly. At this time, it is about to enter the month of germination, April, so the ground at the foot of the Great Smoky Mountain is already a lot greener, especially after a winter of winter wheat. At this time it has grown very well. The Little Ice Age, which took place from 1650 to 1715, which was close to 70 years, has just ended for only half a century. Now the global climate is very stable. Last winter, there were a few heavy snowfalls near the Gaoshu tribe. The winter wheat was covered by several snow covers. After the snow melted in the spring, The growth of the winter wheat was naturally very gratifying. Looking down from this position, the large tracts of green wheat seedlings on both sides of the little river at the foot of the mountain are like a green carpet, which looks extremely seductive, and also makes people feel a kind of vigorous vitality. Looking far away, you can see the Cumberland Plateau in the extreme distance. Between the Cumberland Plateau and the Great Smoky Mountains, you can vaguely see a silver-white jade belt winding through the mountains, that is, Big Bend. A jade belt stretched out from the south side of Big Bend, and it stretched southward into the Big Mountain, which was the little river on the west side of the tribe. Nearby, the houses in the Gaoshu tribe at the foot of the mountain looked like small matchboxes one by one, although they were not big. They were scattered in different places. The black spots in the tribe are moving. They are busy tribesmen. There are also some slightly larger black spots gathered together, which are tamed bison in the tribe. To the west of the tribe, dozens of smoke pillars can be seen rising. That location is where the Zioyan Mountain is located, where many tribesmen are busy making salt. No matter how you look at it, although this Indian tribe located at the foot of the Great Smoky Mountains does not have a colony or the prosperous cities of the Old World, there is indeed a reassuring atmosphere here. Jean Augusta, who stood beside David Adian, smiled and said, "Master Guardian, this is the first time we have stood in such a position to watch our tribe since we came to the tribe." www.wuxiaspa.com. No, to tell you the truth, it feels great here. If Babel can see this kind of scenery, she will definitely like it very much. After a pause, Augustilo continued to say very sincerely, "We all fell asleep when you talked to Jack yesterday, but early the next morning, Jack told me and Bill what you said. So Bill and I agreed that we should stay here. In any case, it is safer to be here than to return to the colony. The most important thing is that we all hope to get your guidance." David Adian also nodded and said, "Master Guardian, although I have been wandering outside looking for mineral deposits these days, I have no desire to leave the tribe. If I have that kind of thinking, I will not. I'll be back so quickly. If I don't want to stay, I can sneak away in the mountains and sneak away from the rig while the soldiers are not paying attention." "But I didn't do that, did I?" This made Shi Xiong laugh happily. "Well, you are willing to stay. I am really so happy. Don't worry, I can promise you here that you can work here with peace of mind for a few years. 5 years. If you want to leave, then if you do, I will never stop you. Well, as for the guidance you want, I will definitely not be stingy." "Brother," Lee said with a smile, "Guardian, I don't think your promise is of any use, because we really don't want to go back to the hell-like place again. We just want to do research quietly here. We all hope to get your advice." "Okay, I can promise you this. As long as you live up to me, I bear hard, the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice will certainly not take you down." Chapter 204, Map, Sacrifice, Leader. Let's take the Dakingshan tribe back again. At Hong Yun's residence, 5 of them, including Stone Bear, Hong Yun, Li Lei, Bigfoot and Wolftail, were all present. Shi Xiong said, "On this occasion out of my own thoughts." Hong Yun frowned, but she didn't say anything. Based on her knowledge of her guardian, since he raised such an issue, there must be his reasons. Li Lei also said nothing. Although the big man respected himself on the surface, Li Lei knew very well that he could not control the big man himself, and after being stunned by the stone bear several times, Li Lei is now less and less daring to care about the guardian. "I can't control it." Li Lei himself admits that although this big man is rebellious, he can't wait to take himself from the foot of the mountain to the top of the blue mist. But this big man's actions are really totally different. It's for the tribe. The most important thing is that every time the guardian succeeds in doing something, the strength of the tribe will properly rise to a higher level. Just at this point, Li Lei couldn't manage the guardian, let alone a Kabul sacrifice behind the guardian. As for Wolftail, he was able to call him over to participate in the discussion today purely because of his identity as a warrior cuckoo. Of course, if Wolftail wanted to express some objection against Shi Xiong didn't mind throwing him out of this room. But Bigfoot has become more and more fond of the guardian, especially after he followed the guardian to the Alcorn fortress. He witnessed the cruelty and cunning of the big man towards the enemy, especially the visit to Alcran Fortress, obtaining so many gains. This is almost entirely the credit of the Guardian alone. In addition, some days ago, the Guardian produced that delicious and vigorous sweet potato wine, which was very in line with the taste of Bigfoot, which made Bigfoot love and support the Guardian even more. Dajiao is a very fair person. Even if he is not Li Lei's younger brother, he will be supported by most of his tribe. Without him, among the Indian tribes, as long as you do things fairly, then someone will support you. So Bigfoot now supports the Guardian very much, because Bigfoot believes that everything the Guardian does is very fair and fair. The most important thing is that the Guardian really has no selfishness. Even if he sent a boat to the Xiao tribe to visit his lover, he was fully qualified for the Guardian's merits, not to mention that the Guardian brought back many soybean seeds from the Xiao tribe. To use a sentence from later generations, people do things with both public and private considerations. You don't even have the opportunity to stab them. So Dajiao asked gently, Guardian, you suddenly made such a suggestion. To be honest, we are not prepared. Moreover, the Qingshan tribe has been separated from our tribe for nearly 50 years. If there is nothing special the reason for this, if we want to take back the Qingshan tribe, what do you ask Qingshan, the leader of the Qingshan tribe, to think? Shi Xiong knew about the Qingshan tribe. The Qingshan tribe is a small tribe separated from the Gaoshu tribe, just like the shaggy cattle tribe that once bred great bears. But the Qingshan tribe separated earlier. The name of the Qingshan tribe is mainly because the leader of this tribe is called Qingshan. After each leader of the tribe comes to power, he will change his previous name and become the new leader of the Qingshan. The Qingshan tribe is about the same size as the Qingmao tribe, with a population of about 100 people. The location of their tribe is located in the hilly area between Yinyu Ridge and Big Bend, a straight line distance of about 20 kilometers from Gaoshu tribe. Hearing Bigfoot's words, Shi Xiong nodded at Bigfoot with gratitude in his eyes. He knew that Bigfoot was actually helping himself by saying this. So Shi Xiong said simply, Sacrifice. Leader, I think the population in our tribe is too small now. We need to increase the number of some tribes appropriately. Now the number of tribes in our tribe has begun to restrict the development of our tribe, and over time, this restriction will become more and more obvious. But, I think the population of our tribe is enough. If we add more than 100 people, the burden of the tribe will be very large. Otherwise, the Qingshan tribe and her long-hair cattle tribe would not have been 50 years ago separated from the tribe. Wolf Tail said gloomily from the side. Shi Xiong glanced at the wolf's tail, which was neither yin nor yang. He also couldn't figure out why this guy was so hostile to him. Ordinarily, he cleaned up this guy twice. This guy should be acquainted, but this guy is like a cockroach. It is all kinds of unconvinced. However, Shi Xiong did not get angry at this guy, but instead asked, if the Qingshan tribe is taken back, where is the burden on the tribe? If you say where you live, then this is okay. There is still open space around the tribe. Let the Qingshan tribe's people build residential houses. If you say it's food, it's even more okay. Do you really think the food I got from Alcran Fortress is fake? Or do you think we use salt from the grain that Waxiku traded in his hands is all sand? As long as there is a place to live and the grain is enough to eat, why can't we let the Qingshan tribe return to our tribe? The wolf's tail opened his mouth, as if he wanted to refute, but in the end he lowered his head helplessly. Shi Xiong didn't pay attention to the wolf's tail anymore. It is estimated that even Li Lei would not support him and make trouble with him at this time. Such a person Shi Xiong would not bother to care about him. If it weren't for this high-level meeting of the tribe, Shi Xiong would not waste his saliva saying these things to this guy. Sacrifices, chiefs. In fact, you should also feel a kind of restriction, which comes from the restriction of manpower. Now it is the germination month. Although our grain has been cultivated, the land for cultivation is still far from enough, and when it comes to the month of strawberry, June, and the month of thunder, July, we still need to cultivate more crops, which requires more people. In addition to farming, our salt making, steel making, and mineral mining also require a lot of manpower. and there will be more work that needs more people to do in the future. So we must try to separate the past from now on. We need more people to develop our tribe. As for the last question asked by Uncle Bigfoot just now, what should the leader of the returned tribe do? This is actually very simple. The tribe we want to take back, not just a Kingshan tribe, we should take back all the tribes that have been separated. As for the leaders of these returned tribes, we can form an elder group in the tribe, and those tribe leaders who have separated are part of the elder group. The elders? What is this for? Hong Yun couldn't help asking. It's very simple. It's like an organization like sacrifices and chief advisors. The elders can make suggestions for the development and planning of the tribe. If someone endangers the safety and interests of the tribe, the elders can also stop it. In short, the elders are just the advisory organization under the sacrificial priest, and the leader helps the sacrificial leader and the leader to develop the tribe. Although some do not understand what Shi Xiong's words like consultant mean, Li Lei understands that the elders are inferior to the position of the leader, which gradually loosened his frowning brows. As far as Li Lei is concerned, as long as he does not threaten the position of his leader, then he is not worried. In fact, some time ago, Li Lei always had trouble finding Shi Xiong with nothing wrong, because Li Lei deeply felt the threat from this big man. After all, Stone Bear is the guardian appointed by the high priest of Kabru from the previous generation, and the things that this big man has done since he came to the tribe are simply too simple. Only after finding the guardian a few troubles and being swollen by the big man's nose and face, Li Lei immediately realized that the guardian could not be moved by himself. No matter what, I don't seem to be able to touch this guy. www.wuxiaspa.com. So now Li Lei is completely dead. But he still asked, "Guardian, why do we do so many things? Isn't our current life very good?" Shi Xiong sighed slightly, took out a piece of limestone from his pocket, then walked to an empty wall, and started painting with this piece of limestone on the wooden wall. Several people stared at the stone bear, and before long, in the doubtful eyes of these people, a rough map of America was drawn. The wall of the wooden house where Hong Yun lives is large enough, and the figure of Shi Xiong is high enough, so the map of America he drew includes the entire North and South America. "What is this?" Hong Yun asked curiously. "This is the map of the land we live in now. This is the Supreme Sun who pointed me." Shi Xiong now uses the sun as a guise, and there is nowhere to beat it. "The land we live in is very big, so big that you can't imagine. As for how big is it, I'll draw you a picture of the range that our Cherokee people can control now." With that said, the stone bear drew a small circle at the intersection of Tennessee, West Virginia, Kentucky, and North Carolina, and dotted 2 white dots in it. "See, this small circle is the area that our entire tribe can control now. The white dot above is Monongahela, where the royal court is located, and the white dot below is the general position of our tribe. This small circle is very small, not even 1% of the North American continent. As for the 2 white spots, they can be ignored." Such a clear contrast made the faces of several people become uncertain. Chapter 205, The Carnage of the Future. Hong Yun got to the map painted on the wall and looked at the map carefully. After a long time, she swallowed and asked, "Guardian, are you sure you made a mistake? Is it the Cherokee only occupying such a small part of this land? How is this possible?" Shi Xiong smiled slightly, and then said in a very positive tone, "Sacrifice, I can be sure that I painted it right. 35xs. In fact, even if I paint like this, I still paint a bit larger on the territory occupied by our tribe." Shi Xiong didn't talk nonsense about this. After all, this map of the Americas is only a very rough map, only the general shape of the American continent, and most of the details are not drawn at all. But even so, if this map were to be seen by European colonists, it would definitely be astonishing. Moreover, in order to highlight the Cherokee tribe, the stone bear slightly drew the area occupied by the Cherokee tribe a little larger. But even so, the territory currently occupied by the entire Cherokee tribe occupies only a very small part of this map. Li Lei and the others also leaned forward, and when they saw this map, They also had an unbelievable expression. After a long time, Li Lei asked, "Guardian, I admit that this map you drew is very shocking, but what does it matter to us? Even if the size of our tribe is expanded tenfold or even in such a large area 100 times, it is impossible to occupy all of it. And what we discussed before was whether to return the Dikingshan tribe again. Did you suddenly draw this map to illustrate?" Shi Xiong smiled again when he heard Li Lei's words. I have to say that Li Lei is really a little afraid of himself now. Even if he raises an objection, he speaks very tactfully. However, Shi Xiong didn't want to be so tactful with them. As soon as possible to expand the strength of the tribe. This cannot be delayed at all. It is very necessary to raise the strength of the tribe as soon as possible. So Shi Xiong said simply, "Do you know how many of our people live on this land?" "Our tribe?" Hong Yun asked puzzledly. "Are you referring to our Cherokee tribe?" Shi Xiong shook his head. "I'm talking about the aboriginal people who have lived on this land for a long time like us, not just our Cherokee. Although they are not the same tribe or even ethnic group as us, but they have black hair and yellow skin just like us, compared to the Vasikas with blonde hair, blue eyes and white skin. Although they are far away from us, they are our compatriots because they share a common ancestor with us." Several people nodded seemingly. "So, how many of our compatriots used to be?" "About 25 million. This number is 300 times the number of our entire Cherokee tribe." In the middle of the 18th century, there were approximately 80 to 9 million Cherokee people living in the Appalachian Mountains. Anyway, there were absolutely no more than 100,000. The exact number of stone bears is unclear. He only read the information in his previous life. I learned it from time to time. This number actually ranks among the top few Indians in the entire North American continent. It's just that the huge Appalachian Mountains not only obstructed the Cherokee's outward development route, but also obscure the number and scale of the Cherokee. In terms of the size of the population alone, the population of the Cherokee after more than 200 years of recuperation is no less than the population of the Iroquois Alliance in the north and the Seven-Colored Flame Alliance in the northwest, that is, the Sioux League. The number that Shi Xiong said made several tribal leaders confused again. With their cultural level, how can they understand the concepts of 25 million and 300 times? Looking at the look of a group of high-level tribes in confusion, Shi Xiong sighed helplessly and explained, "What is the concept of 25 million? Let's compare it with our tribe. Our tribe now has more than 300 people. 300 tribes like ours are about the same as our entire Cherokee tribe." These words made Hong Yun and the others settled, but after they didn't understand it, they raised their heads and began to imagine, but in the end all of them were defeated. For them, it is difficult for them to imagine how large the 300 tribes are together. Is this a large number, to the point that you can't even imagine it? Several people nodded together, even the wolf tail. Then, 300 people gathered together. That's the number of all people living on this land. As I said, you can imagine how many people there are. A few people simply shook their heads. They couldn't even imagine the scale of 80 to 9 million people. How could they imagine the scale of 25 million or more people together? But they all want to know why the Guardian says these are useless. The stone bear did not let them weigh too much. He simply pointed to the central and southern parts of the map, that is, Central and South America, and said, "Do you see this huge area? There are more than 2 of our compatriots living here, tens of thousands of people, but this large area is now occupied by a Vasica named Spain and another named Portugal. They not only occupied this large area, but they also slaughtered our compatriots crazy there. Because of them the number of people is small, but they have advanced weapons, so if they want to occupy this large tract of rich and beautiful land, they must kill all the aborigines who originally lived here, that is, our compatriots. This way they can do nothing, search for the wealth of this land without scruples." After a pause, Stone Bear threw out a number that made Li Lei and their faces pale again. In the 200 years since the Spanish and Portuguese discovered this large piece of land, those damned ones Vasica has killed more than 20 million of our compatriots. 20 million. Do you know what this number represents? The more Shi Xiong said, the more anger he got on his face. Although he hadn't seen the scene where Europeans slaughtered Indians with his own eyes, he just had to close his eyes and think about it. Can't think of the horrible situation that makes people look at. You all know the Crooked Deer tribe in our northwest, right? Several people nodded. Kidding. The largest tribe of the entire Cherokee tribe after the royal court is this Crooked Deer tribe. They live near the Great South Fork in the northwest of the Gaoshu tribe, and they are also resistant to the Chickasha tribe. The main force. What they didn't know was that the name of the Crooked Deer tribe translated into English as Tennessee, which is Tennessee. Later, after the United States of America established and took over this large area, it named this large piece of land after this tribe, Tennessee State. The population of the Crooked Deer's tribe is about 2,000 people, 20 million, that is, the population of 10,000 Crooked Deer's tribes together. As soon as Shi Xiong said this, Hong Yun and the others took a breath. The population of 10,000 Crooked Deer's tribe. Although they can't imagine how big this number is, they know that it is an extremely large number. And so many people were actually killed by those Vasicus. It's simply ignoring their shock. Shi Xiong continued to point to North America on the map and said, "On this land where we live, our compatriots are only more than 2 million people. Whether it is the Iroquois who expelled us, people and Delawares, as well as the Seven-Colored Flame Alliance and Navajo to the west, all live on this land, and in this area." Stone Bear drew this piece of limestone on the east coast of North America with his hand. 1. It's the places currently occupied by Vasicu. Although, the Vasicus who occupy this area are not the Spaniards and Portuguese who have been murderous, they are not good birds. The reason why they have not attacked us now is because the countries behind them are making trouble in the old continent. It's a must. Hong Yun asked curiously, "You mean the UK where Ferguson is located and France where Babel is located?" During this period, Shi Xiong was talking about the old world in their ears when they had nothing to do. Therefore, they can now roughly distinguish the British and the French, and also generally understand the hostile relationship between Britain and France. "Yes, that's them." Shi Xiong nodded affirmatively, and then looked at Li Lei and the others. "According to the instructions from the son I got, these two countries are now in trouble. For this reason, these two countries, especially the UK where Ferguson is located, will continue to increase the exploitation of Wasicchu, which occupies this area." I'm reading www.hukinshu.com, and their domestic exploitation will inevitably lead to these Vasicu resistance. The Great Sun once told me that in about another 10 years, the Vasicus who are entrenched here will rise up because they can't bear this kind of exploitation, and eventually they will be here. The region is independent and a new country is established. Is this true? Hong Yun asked again, but immediately realized that he was asking a very bad question. After all, the Guardian had already said that this was told to him by the Supreme Sun God. Shi Xiong didn't care. This is something that will happen in the future. About 50 years from now, when these Vasicus break free from the jurisdiction of the British and establish an independent nation, they will treat us and even our compatriots in the West. Take the butcher knife, because they need the resources here, especially when they find a large amount of black iron, gold, in the plateau further west. Greed will make them have no scruples anymore. Because of the greed for black iron, these Vasicu will forget our ethnic groups who have given them great help. They will forget that we have allowed them to settle down on this continent. They will forget that we have given them selfless help. Therefore, our descendants will be affected by this. Damn Vasicu slaughtered clean. After a pause, the Stone Bear said with certainty, "Under the guidance of the Supreme Sun God, I have seen the sight of blood flowing into a river, and our Cherokee people have been almost slaughtered, and only a few people have escaped. Going into the depths of the mountains, did you get a chance to survive? Tribes like ours will be slaughtered clean by these Vasicus in 50 years. You, I, and the descendants of our people will all be here." Was killed in that massacre. Chapter 206, The Tribe Returns. Shi Xiong's words caused everyone present to fall into a mood called panic. They didn't dare and couldn't doubt what the Guardian said. These things the Guardian said were all pointed by the Supreme Sun God. How could the Supreme, Omnipotent, and Great Sun be wrong. If all this happens in the future, then the situation. Hong Yun and Li Lei didn't dare to imagine what kind of scene it would be. Looking at the expressions of horror, fear, shock, and confusion among these tribal leaders, Shi Xiong said, "So, in order to prevent our tribe from being slaughtered by those Vasicus, in order to prevent our compatriots from being slaughtered by those Vasicus, massacre, in order to avoid the massacre of our offspring, we must strengthen our strength as soon as possible, because only our fists are hard enough. Those Vasicus dare not do anything to us. Even when our strength is strong enough, it can even drive those Vasicus out of this land or make them succumb to our rule. Don't forget, we are the real masters of this land, not the tiles from the old continent on the other side of the ocean." Zaichu, Ishikame's words called them back from their horror about the future. Hong Yun asked, "Guardian, is this the reason you are eager to take the Dakingshan tribe back?" "That's right. Not only the Dakingshan tribe, but all the surrounding tribes that have separated from our Gaoshu tribe, we have to take it back. Moreover, when our tribe is strong enough, the Crooked Deer's tribe, the Das Hankyu tribe, and the Hong tribe, we all have to subdue them in the Water tribe." These words shocked these people again. The Crooked Deer's tribe, the Big Hill tribe, and the Red River Water tribe are all big and famous Cherokee tribes with extremely powerful strength, and the Guardian intends to subdue these tribes. Not only these tribes, I want our High Tree tribe to become the royal court of the Cherokee tribe. I want our Cherokee tribe to conquer the Iroquois in the north, the Sioux in the northwest and the Navajo in the west, the Cree in the south. Let us Cherokee become the supreme ruler of this land, because only when we work together to twist a rope can we resist the Vasicus, and it is possible to drive those Vasicus, get out of this land or let them completely surrender. These provocative remarks directly caused the high levels of several tribes to begin to confuse their blood. If all the things the Guardian said can be realized, wouldn't the Gaoshu tribe become the supreme ruler of this huge outrageous land? The sights of several people fell on the map painted on that wall again. They originally thought that the Cherokee tribe, who occupied a large area, looked insignificant and dazzling on this map at this time. Li Lei swallowed dryly, and looked at the big feet and wolf tail around him, and found that they had also fallen into a kind of enthusiasm. As for Hong Yun, it may be similar to this. The Guardian should have said to her, so Hong Yun didn't seem so excited, but her eyes were still bright and scary. "Guardian, can these things you say can be achieved?" Li Lei knew that it was time for his tribe leader to express his attitude. Of course, Li Lei also knew very well in his heart that the Guardian in front of him was a very, very powerful person. If he disagrees, the Guardian would abandon himself and unite with others to do this. As for the Kabulu sacrifice and the tribal people's support for the Guardian, if he does not agree to the expansion, I am afraid that the leader position under his will be overthrown by the Guardian. However, from the current point of view, although the Guardian is extremely strong, he is very disciplined no matter what he does, as if it is something related to the future of the tribe. In fact, if the Guardian is willing, he can directly cooperate with Hong Yun to do it, but he still discussed with the leader of his tribe first as before. Since this can't be stopped, let's go all out to support it. What if this big man can do what he says? Shi Xiong looked at Li Lei, and from the tone of Li Lei's question, he had already heard that Li Lei seemed not to object to this matter, but there were still some worries. This is human nature, Shi Xiong can understand, so he smiled and said, "Chief, I don't know if this matter will succeed in the end, but I know one thing, as long as we continue to work towards this goal, even if in the end, it is estimated that this goal will not be far worse, but if we do not work hard, then we will definitely not reach this goal." After a pause, Shi Xiong looked at these people sincerely and said, "Why should I make steel? Why should I ask the Vasicus to come to Augusta Westland and the four of them? Why should Ferguson develop a new rifle? The religious people tame the bison and use the greatest strength to open up wasteland and farm? This is actually working hard for this goal. All I am doing now is to lay the foundation for achieving this goal. As long as the foundation is well laid, then we will have the qualifications to compete for this land." www.wuxiaspa.com. But our current population is too small, Even if I work hard, it will be greatly reduced because of the population. Therefore, I need people, and the more people, the better. We need someone to cultivate the land, someone to mine the minerals, someone to do all kinds of work, and a large number of soldiers to fight for us. As far as I know, since our Gaoshu tribe settled here, in these 200 years, a total of 16 small tribes have been separated from our Gaoshu tribe. There are Pumpkin Bay tribes that have been wiped out by the Chicashes, and there are now 14 tribes. The population of these tribes ranges from 60 to 70 to 123. If we can take the remaining, if all of these tribes are taken back, then the population of our Gaoshu tribe can immediately surpass the Crooked Deer's tribe and become the largest tribe in this area. Even when compared to the royal court, the strength of our Gaoshu tribe will not fail. And, don't forget, we also have new muskets and grenades, and there will be more powerful and more advanced thermal weapons in the future. If all members of our tribe are equipped with thermal weapons, then our tribe will be able to sweep the entire Chicasha human strength. Coupled with our high priest Kabru, as long as we are willing, we will become the new royal court of the Cherokee tribe. So, no matter from which aspect, we must take back these tribes. We can take them back at once, but we can start with the Dikingshan tribe. And once the Dikingshan tribe returns, we will live here. It's better than before, so other tribes are definitely more willing to return. Offering sacrifices and leaders, Dikingshan tribes return is imperative. Chapter 207, Cheated. Although there is no major problem with wanting to accept the Dikingshan tribe, many of the things are relatively trivial. The Dikingshan tribe separated from the Gaoshu tribe for only 50 years, and it still maintains a very close relationship with the Gaoshu tribe. Moreover, the Dikingshan tribe, like other tribes that separated out, did not live very well. After all, the population was much smaller. In this era that is close to primitive society, population is the most basic of a tribe, and nothing can be more important than population. The tribes that separated from the Gaoshu tribe actually lived the same way. Of course, they wanted to return to the Gaoshu tribe. After all, that was the mother clan. It's just that the Gaoshu tribe could not feed so many people before, otherwise they would not be separated from the Gaoshu tribe. Ishikama is here. All this has changed. Now the Gaoshu tribe has more than 70 tamed bison, and this number is constantly increasing. With the help of bison and the promotion of new farm tools, almost all the flat areas around the Gaoshu tribe have become farmland. And because Major Hank brought a lot of rice seeds when he came last time, Shi Xiong planned to wait for the weather to get warm and open up a paddy field next to the little river to grow rice. The ground manure here is oily, and there is no shortage of water. It is naturally the best choice to grow rice. As long as the gods look on the face in the first half of this year and do not cause natural disasters, then in the strawberry month, June, the winter wheat and sweet potatoes in the field will definitely get a bumper harvest. As long as there is food, no matter how many people the Gaoshu tribe receives, it is not afraid. Although the harvest has not yet been harvested, the Gaoshu tribe still has a lot of food. After the return of the Dikingshan tribe, the Gaoshu tribe will have more than 100 people, and there is no need to worry about no food to eat. Here, Li Lei, Hongyan and other high-level members of the tribe are busy receiving the return of the Dikingshan tribe, and a group of officers in school uniforms surround a general in the Akron fortress hundreds of miles away. The old man in costume was sitting in the lobby of the city lord's mansion in Akron fortress, frowning one by one at the two fat men sitting opposite. If Shi Xiong were here, he would definitely recognize these two fat white men. One of the fat guys is Fernan, who was scared to pee his pants by Stone Bear at the Akron fortress. This guy is the brother of Count Fernan. And the other fat man, or Reno, was the fat man who almost kicked a fat face into a whiteboard by Shi Xiong. The sister of this guy is a viscountess. At the beginning, these two guys were very awesome in the Akron fortress, and neither of them accepted, but now they are sitting upright, like a obedient elementary school student, obviously very jealous of the general opposite. Jose, your brother and I have been good friends for decades, and you have been in Fort Cochran for several years, so you have to tell the truth and not hide anything, otherwise, even if your brother comes forward, it will open up to you." This gray-haired white general seems to be more than 50 years old, but his body is still very strong. Even if he is sitting, he still maintains a soldier's posture. The fat white man called Jose is exactly that Fernan. His full name is Jose Fernan. At this time, his face has completely lost the look of the original arrogance. He said with a bitter face, "Respected Viscount, what I just said is the truth, and there is no omission. Orino can help me testify. Lieutenant Alphonse can also testify for me." The general's face was still ugly. He looked at the fat Orino sitting next to Fernan. Orino nodded desperately. "Dear Viscount, what Mr. Fernan just said is correct. It's all that day, things that happened." General again fell on a young man standing aside. Although this young man was wearing a military uniform, all his ranks and everything were taken off, and his hands and wrists were tied with a rope. This young man is Lieutenant Alphonse, but now he is clearly a prisoner. Alphonse looked unlovable, and he could see that he had no hope of whether he could survive now. As a low-level officer, although he has only seen this general a few times in the distance, he has heard about the general's deeds and character countless times. I made a mistake without knowing it, and let the general point out that he had made a big mistake. This is a great mistake in itself. Now it fell into the hands of the general who couldn't rub the sand in his eyes and was sent to scaffolding. I'm afraid it's his only end. Who made this general? The famous General Clare, the iron-blooded general. Seeing the look on the young lieutenant's face, General Clare felt that it was another inexplicable irritation. A huge fortress in Cochran, there are more than 100 garrisons and hundreds of immigrants who can turn into fighters with guns. They were deceived by a group of natives. The most important thing is that the damned Armand didn't know his life or death, and the 100 soldiers of the French Empire he took out were also missing. These are 100 outstanding soldiers, so silently knowing their lives and deaths. This is simply a shame to the Empire. With a slap on the table with his right hand, Claire stood up, pointed at the warrant spread out on the table, pointed at Alphonse and cursed, "Tell me about you. As a lieutenant of the Imperial Army, as the supreme commander of the temporary garrison of the Cochran fortress, how could you be deceived by such a warrant? What about your vigilance? What about your sense of responsibility? Are they all eaten by those wild dogs?" No wonder the general who has been guarding New Orleans was angry. As the 7 Years' War ended with the defeat of France, France lost almost all its colonies in the New World. In order to ensure the ownership of Guadeloupe in the Caribbean, New France in the north of the New World was ceded to the British. The French had worked hard in New France for more than a century and became the British Quebec province. All areas east of the Great River were also ceded to the British. Although the British temporarily allowed the French troops to be stationed in New Orleans no longer belonged to France. The Treaty of Fontainebleau had already confessed Louis the capital of Havana was given to the Spaniards. As a general who has lived in New Orleans for nearly 10 years, Clare does not care about the loss of the colony of East India by France. He cares about the colonies of the New World. New France and Louisiana are like two gateways, which stubbornly restrain the expansion of the British in the New World to the north and west. If it develops for a period of time, the entire western and northern parts of the New World will all be owned by France. Once it can occupy that large area, then the strength of France will be side by side with the mighty Spain, and the newly arisen Britain will be stifled to death. But after a war, France, which had the advantage, was defeated. All the good situation was reversed overnight. Almost all the French colonies in the New World were ceded to the British. How can this not make General Clare heartache? But no matter how heartache, Clare knew that she couldn't reverse it all with her own strength. Moreover, spring is coming soon. New Orleans needs to be handed over to the Spaniards, and I, the highest military commander of Louisiana, also needs to return home. Therefore, before returning to China, Clare decided on a whim and decided to take a small sailing warship up the north of the Great River and inspect the area under his own jurisdiction for the last time. The Tier 4 sailing warship that General Clare was riding on has not played much role in naval battles, but if this ship is named after the Duc Choiseul, The Secretary of State, if it is in the Big River sailing, that is a Big Mac. Along the Big River all the way north, although the current is upstream, the speed of the boat is not slow. This is a serious sailing warship, far from being comparable to that of inland river armed transport ships. At first, Claire's mood improved because of the scenery along the way, but when the Choiseul sailed to Memphis to anchor and rest, she encountered a transport fleet returning from the upper reaches of the river. Although the supreme commander of the transport fleet consisting of 4 inland armed transport ships was only a captain www.wuxiaspot.com. General Claire kindly received the supreme commander of the transport fleet. Originally, General Claire wanted to learn more about the military fortresses on the upper reaches of the river through this captain, but he learned very bad news from the captain. My Excellency General, the fleet led by Captain Constantine, another transportation commander of our Marine Corps, has been without news since it departed from New Orleans more than 4 months ago. Although I have a different transportation route, but even if he walked along the Ohio River, he should have returned to New Orleans long ago. The superb military literacy General Claire immediately smelled an unusual crisis from this sudden news. He immediately summoned all the commanders of the transport fleet stationed in Memphis, and then asked them about Captain Constantine. The only news that I got was that about 50 days ago, someone had seen Captain Constantine's fleet staying outside the fortress of Akron. So General Claire was not going to continue north along the Big River, but turned to the upper reaches of the Ohio River from the place where the Ohio River meets the Big River. After arriving at Akron Fortress, General Claire only asked about the incident that happened more than 50 days ago. He immediately understood one thing, that is, all the people here were deceived by the indigenous people. Up. P.S. Bowen thanked book friends for their rewards. Chapter 208, 2 Golden Teeth. General Claire was able to become the highest military commander in French Louisiana, and sitting in this position for nearly 10 years, naturally he was not a simple person. It is absolutely not an exaggeration to describe the Viscount and Major General of the French Empire with old cunning and cunning. On the 3rd day of his arrival at the Akron Fortress, General Claire had almost figured out the ins and outs of this matter, that is, all the people in the entire Akron Fortress, including the temporary fortress when Major Chrétien Armand was away. Lieutenant Alphonse, the highest military commander of the garrison, and the noble spokespersons were all deceived by a group of natives. Alphonse was indeed deceived, and the usual arrogant José Fernand in front of him was simply frightened by the group of natives. This incident can already be determined as a fraud case, but the question is why these indigenous groups have a handwritten warrant from Major Chrétien Armand, and they also have Major Armand's adjutant Captain Pno personally accompany him. Coming here, General Claire was not sure about it. Not to mention that the group of indigenous people would even drive an inland river armed transport ship. Of course, General Claire is not without guessing in his mind, based on his experience, the only way for the indigenous people to do all this is. But General Claire was very unwilling to believe his guess. After all, it was a fleet of 100 elite army veterans and 4 ships with 24 84mm caliber artillery. So, until the exact evidence is found, Claire would rather believe that her guess is wrong. Whether it is Lieutenant Alphonse or those businessmen, General Claire has been questioning several times in the past few days, but the answers given by them also made Claire somewhat helpless. Let's take this Lieutenant Alphonse as an example. Although he stupidly gave 10,000 pounds of food to the natives, it seemed silly, but General Claire asked himself if he was the young lieutenant in that situation. I am afraid I will be deceived too. The handwritten warrant of the highest military commander of the fortress, accompanied by Armand's adjutant himself. Under such circumstances, this young lieutenant can only execute such a military order. Subordinates obey the superiors is the most important rule in the army. Under such circumstances, the young lieutenant has no other choice. Let alone the 4 armed transport ships and the identity of the indigenous leader. That native leader actually said that he was the chief of the Chickaman tribe, and he was so accurate about New Orleans. If the chief of the Chickaman tribe had not been by his side, General Claire thought he had always treated himself The loyal Chikmun tribe has rebelled. You need to know something about the Chikmun tribe, even that Chrétien Armand knows it is not very clear. Could it be that the indigenous tribes near New Orleans pretended to be the Chikmun tribe doing this? It seems that this is the only way to explain why the indigenous leader knows the situation in New Orleans so clearly. General Clair looked at the young lieutenant who looked unlovable, and sighed slightly in his heart. If this is not the case, this young lieutenant may have a very bright future, and may even grow into a senior officer like himself. But when this happened, now General Clair is waiting for evidence. A piece of evidence that can prove his unwillingness to admit his guess. Although General Clair knew that this kind of evidence was not easy to find, he had to do it. The most elite team of Chikmun was dispatched. This was the finest Chikmun team, not the so-called Chikmun team brought by the indigenous leader when he cheated. In this vast and desolate land, the real Chikmun team is invincible. I hope they can find evidence. General Clair thought a little entangled in his heart. And then, as he was preparing to drive out these eyesores, he saw a tall and strong figure, holding two things that are not in the middle of the winter. They hurried in from outside the door. This tall and sturdy guy is dressed like a native of the New World. He is the chief blood shark of the Chikmun tribe. The Chikmun people live in the area where the big river enters the sea all year round. They usually fish and hunt, so they can often catch vicious sharks in the sea. It is said that the blood shark once single-handedly caught a big shark more than 4 meters long in the sea during his first adult trial. When the shark was transported to their tribe, it shocked the whole tribe. The chief of their tribe personally gave him a tribe rectification. The blood shark's steps were very large and firm, and quickly walked to General Clair's, and when he put the two round things in his hand on the table, everyone's pupils couldn't help but shrunk a bit. It turned out to be two snow-white skulls, one of which is relatively complete, but the other half of the face has been crushed by something. But even on the relatively complete skull, there are some very clear tooth marks. Your Excellency, this was discovered by my soldiers in a dense forest by the river about 20 kilometers from the fortress. There are dozens of skeletons like this. The most important thing is that most of these skeletons are messy. Obviously it was attacked by hordes of beasts. The most terrifying thing is that there are some messy ropes around these bones, so these people should be tied to the big tree before they die, and then in groups the beasts ate them. According to my analysis, those people should have been bitten to death by a group of four-legged giant beaks. Later, more than one group of wild wolves came, and eventually these people would be eaten only by bones. General Clair couldn't help but change his face when he heard this. The four-legged beast in the mouth of the blood shark is a beast that lives in the swamp near the mouth of the big river. In European words, it is a crocodile. Of course, in the language of the Chickasaw, this ferocious beast is called Ritek. The tribe is different from the tribe, and the languages spoken are also different, so the name of the beast such as the crocodile is naturally different. But no matter what you call this beast, you can't describe the brutality of this beast. General Clair also knew this kind of ferocious beast very well. In New Orleans, every year someone is attacked and killed by such a brutal guy. Are these people bitten to death by crocodiles? Or were they tied to a tree and bitten to death? Damn, how much hatred it takes to do such an inhumane thing. Clair couldn't help feeling too. There was a chill. The two skulls on the table are facing General Clair, and the four hollow eyes seem to be silently telling their own misery. Suddenly, General Clair was attracted by the teeth of a skull. Without any fear, he reached out and picked up the skull, and held the skull in front of him and looked at it carefully. This skull is the hapless man whose cheekbones were crushed, but although half of his face was crushed, the other half of his face was still intact, and on this half of the complete skull, two big golden teeth are inlaid in the back alveolar. Although the owner of this skull had been chewed so much that even half of his face was gone, the two big golden teeth made General Clair's pupils shrink again. This is a person from the old world. After just a glance, General Clair recognized the identity of the skull. Although the New World is rich in resources, gold can often be found in the Appalachian Mountains, but the natives of the New World do not use gold to inlay their teeth. Only in the Far East and the Old Continent can such dentures made of gold exist. Of course, people who can afford gold teeth must be people with a certain amount of wealth. Just like Claire herself, the posterior molar is also inlaid with 3 gold teeth. General Claire immediately turned his gaze to Lieutenant Alphonse, and asked in a deep voice, "Alphonse, do you know who is inlaid with gold teeth in your barracks?" 2 gold teeth? After asking Alphonse, General Claire asked Fernand and Orino the same question, but the target was changed to merchants and civilians. The eyes of these people who were interrogated by the general focused on the skull in the general's hands again. After a while, Fernand and Orino both shook their heads, but after seeing the 2 golden teeth, Lieutenant Alphonse just thought about it, and said thoughtfully, "Your Excellency General, if I remember correctly, our major armament has 2 inlays. There are 2 golden teeth www.wuxiaspot.com and they are on the right posterior molar, one on top and one on the top and one at the back, both on the back." Upon hearing this, General Claire lifted his spirits. "Alphonse, are you sure?" "I can be sure, because the major was accompanied by me during the dental implantation. It was about 2 years ago. Moreover, the condition of our major's teeth was not optimistic. He also had 2 teeth on the other side that were not very good. At that time, the major I also said that after the 2 teeth are lost, I will inlay 2 gold teeth from here." "Oh, yes, these 2 gold teeth are inlaid from the fortress, and the dental dentist who inlaid the teeth is the one under Mr. Fernand's Mr. Baudouin. Bring that Mr. Baudouin here now." General Claire immediately gave the order. It didn't take long for a man in his 40s to be brought over. It was Baudouin, the only dentist in the fortress. "Yes, these 2 teeth were indeed inlaid by me, and in the 5 years I have been in the fortress, I have only inlaid 2 golden teeth in this position. One is the Charles, who has returned to France a long time ago, and the other one is our major armament." As soon as this sentence was spoken, General Claire knew that his unwillingness to admit his guess was proved to be true. That Mrs. Charles had already returned to China, so it was self-evident who the skull was in front of him. "Give me a thorough investigation of all the indigenous tribes along this river, Blood Shark. Your people cooperate with our warriors. I must check this out. I can't let our warriors die in such humiliation. They take revenge." Chapter 209, Teach People How to Fish. "Hey, why are you here again?" Baiyun was full of joy looking at his tall lover, but what he said was a little insincere. "Why, I'm not welcome, or you didn't miss me these days?" Shi Xiong smiled and asked, seeing his lover again. He was also very happy, really very happy. "No, I thought you would have to wait a while before coming." "Can't wait? Who makes me think you always can't sleep?" Even in this era, even the primitive and backward Indians, this kind of touching love story is still not disadvantageous. The girl's cheeks flew into a blush. Although she was a little shy, she still reached out her arm around her lover, and eagerly realized the joy of reunion after a long absence. This time, the stone bear did not take a boat, but instead ran over the mountains on a horse along a path. This trail was found by Stone Bear combining the news given by warriors from the Gaoshu tribe, the Zio tribe, and 2 other small tribes separated from the Gaoshu tribe. There are quite a few tribes between the Zio tribe and the Gaoshu tribe, most of which are Cherokee, and the 2 small tribes previously separated from the Gaoshu tribe are also in this area. The warriors in these tribes are the best hunters in this area, and they are also the best guides. All the roads in this area are installed in their minds, so Shi Xiong has found such a road along the way. Although the road is not very easy to walk, it is much better than the land route that I took before. At least I have not encountered a swamp on this road. Even the tributaries on the left bank of the Tennessee River are not small, but still did not stop Shi Xiong. In the narrow upper reaches of these rivers, the warriors of the local tribes have erected simple single-plank bridges. As long as the flood is not coming, then this kind of single-plank bridges erected by huge woods with a breast diameter of more than 1 meter is not a problem. It's just that in order to cross these single-plank bridges, the stone bear needs to detour a long way. But even so, the time consumed by walking this path is much less than the time consumed by walking the swamp. The most important thing is that it is relatively safer to take this road. In places like swamps, If there is no other way, ghosts are reluctant to go. I brought you and Lei Ying some good things this time. I think you will definitely like it. Holding his lover and sniffing the faint fragrance from his lover, Shi Xiong said slowly. Before, the girl obeyed Shi Xiong's instructions. Don't wear animal skins and more cotton clothes. Anyway, Shi Xiong sent a lot of cotton cloth to the girl when she came last time, and the weather started to get warmer, so these days Bai Yun has been wearing cotton clothes. Without the stench of animal skins, the fragrance on the girl's body was revealed naturally. What good thing? Bai Yun in his arms raised his head and asked. Let's go, I'll show it to you. As he said, Shi Xiong took his lover's little hand and walked to Malaysia, and then took out a clay-sealed pottery altar from the coat hung on the horse's back. What's inside? Hey, it's wine. I made wine by myself. Wine? A surprise appeared on Bai Yun's face. She had drunk this miraculous liquid before. When the tribe in Waxiku traded saltpeter before, her father had exchanged this miraculous liquid from those Waxiku. Bai Yun drank it twice, although it's a bit spicy, but it tastes really good. The most important thing is that the dizzy feeling after drinking is even more wonderful. Well, it's wine. I brewed it myself, but the amount of wine brewed for the first time is not too much. This time I only brought you 2 jars. One jar is high, that is, very spicy, that kind of wine. The other jar is a bit lower and tastes good. When the 2 people talked and laughed, they returned to the tribe. Sure enough, when the stone bear patted the mud seal of the 2 jars of wine, the rich aroma of the wine immediately conquered the Lilei family. Such a small jar of wine is about 5 caddies, and the stone bear also wants to bring more, but one is that it is not convenient to bring more on horseback, and the other reason is that there is not much wine in the tribe. After the wine tasting meeting that day passed, the people of the Gaoshu tribe completely fell in love with the wine made from sweet potatoes. Although most people still can't drink more, some people ask for some from the stone bear every day. After a long time, Shi Xiong simply ignored these wines. The new wine is in the brewing process, and it will take some time to make it, but if the people drink according to the way of the people, it is estimated that the remaining 200 kilograms of wine will not take long to drink up. While Hong Yun, they were busy taking over the Dakingshan tribe, and there was nothing in the tribe. Shi Xiong simply took 2 jars of wine and came over to please his wife and future old man. This power stone bear still has it. Now Lich, you really brewed this wine yourself? When will you make wine? Lei Ying, the red-faced old man who was drinking, asked Shi Xiong. He still heard the word wine from Shi Xiong, although I don't know what the word bang actually means, but this does not prevent the tribe leader from saying the word. What makes Shi Xiong somewhat surprised is that the future old man can really drink. www.wuxiaspa.com. It is estimated that this is the first time he has drunk this kind of high-grade liquor, but he actually only looks like a face redness. Regarding Lao Zhangren's question, Shi Xiong could only smile and point to the sky, and then Lao Zhangren immediately showed a sudden realization. The future son-in-law of his own family had been instructed by the Supreme Sun God, which Liu knew. Uncle, are there many sweet potatoes in your tribe? Shi Xiong asked. A lot. Our tribe still grows a lot of sweet potatoes. This thing has a high yield and is much better than corn. Well, if your tribe has a lot of sweet potatoes, I can teach you how to make this kind of wine. The Chinese saying goes well, teaching people to fish is worse than teaching people how to fish. Since they are about to become a family, Shi Xiong doesn't mind teaching the Lilei family how to make wine, and this time Shi Xiong returned brought a few pieces of koji. Is also fortunate that this horse from Armand is very good. Although it is a gelding, it is tall and strong. Not only can it be a strong man like a rock bear, but it can also bring a lot of extras. Ishikame's words made the Lei Ying family excited. The sisters Bai Yun and Green Sky Lark were also very happy. They didn't like the high-quality wine very much, but they liked the raw sweet potato wine very much. If you can make your own wine, you won't have to worry about not having any drinks in the future. P.S. Just after Mid-Autumn Festival, Lao Mo, who was forced to go out again, if you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, It means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210, Little Skylark and Number 039:S Mind. Outside the long pavilion, beside the ancient road, the sky is full of green grass. The evening breeze is blowing the willow and the flute is lingering, and the setting sun is beyond the mountain. The figure, Shi Xiong's heart suddenly appeared such a lyrics. At this distance, I can't see the appearance of the lover in the distance, and even her figure has become very blurred, but Shi Xiong can still distinguish the girl's arm that insists on not letting down. Although the lyrics that came out of his heart were a bit uncomfortable, Shi Xiong always felt sour in his heart. If he hadn't forcibly endured the sadness of separation, he really wanted to slap the horse back and embrace the figure again, in the arms. Ma under the crotch also seemed to feel the host's uncomfortable mood. He lowered his head and slapped his nose constantly, appearing a little uneasy. Shi Xiong sighed, patted the mount's neck lightly, and finally gritted his teeth, raised his hand and swayed at the figure again, and then he reined at his hands and turned and left. It is always sad to be separated, especially when two lovers in love are in love. It is even more wishful not to be separated for a moment. But Shi Xiong knew that he had to go back. The original plan was to stay in Xiao tribe for only 2 days, but because he couldn't bear to separate, he stayed for another 5 days. This has violated Shi Xiong's usual principle of doing things. Although Gaoshu tribe has nothing to do with him personally, this spring is a critical period for Gaoshu tribe to lay the foundation. Stone bears dare not tolerate the people in the tribe too much. If something goes wrong, though it won't cause any major harm, but the time can't be delayed. Baiyun, standing on the edge of the tribe, watched his lover's figure disappear into the mountains. Then he sighed in melancholy, wiped the corner of his eye lightly, and then turned and walked back. Just not far away, he saw his sister Green Skylark standing by the side of the road, looking at herself playfully. "What's wrong? Why do you look at me with this look?" Baiyun felt a little puzzled by the look of his sister. "I," said sister, "if you like that big man so much, why don't you go with him? Dad and Grandma don't disagree with you too. That big man is so good to you. Why don't you go with him?" "What?" After a pause, the Green Skylark curled his lips and continued, "If it were me, I would go with him today." Baiyun slapped his sister twice. "You crazy girl, how dare you say anything? If you dare to follow, why don't you follow him? If you follow him, I have no problem." Green Skylark's face faded immediately. After a long time, she sighed, "Sister, that big guy likes you, not me. Even if I want to go with him, he will definitely not take me back." Looking at his sister's face almost exactly the same as himself, Baiyun also shook his head helplessly. What does the younger sister think? Why don't you be a elder sister not understand? My younger sister also likes that big man, and Baiyun has already seen this from the first time Li Xiong came to the tribe. As the sister of the twins, Baiyun did not resent her sister because of this. On the contrary, she also hoped that Li Xiong could pick up her sisters at the same time. This is how the marriage of North American Indians in this era is like this. When two people are fond of each other, they can directly roll up a blanket together to form a family, and polygamy is very common, and no one thinks it is wrong. Don't even say it's polygamy, it's nothing strange even if it's polyandry. As long as you can afford such a wife or so many husbands who are willing to raise you together, then you can do so. Li Xiong is obviously capable of supporting his two sisters. Such an excellent man is the best choice in every woman's heart. And my sister and myself were born almost at the same time, and they have been together every day from birth to now, and the relationship is not generally good. Since that is the case, Baiyun really supports her from the heart for her younger sister who likes dolly bears. And even if my sister wants to go with dolly bears, she also hopes that her sisters can be together forever. But the problem is that Li Xiong's unconscious head just disagrees with this matter, which makes Baiyun both happy and helpless. "Little Skylark, we all need to wait patiently," Big Bear said. "He wants to give me the grandest and most beautiful wedding. Although I don't know what a wedding is, he told me about this, and I am very looking forward to that grand wedding. Well, during this time, I will also persuade him to let him marry both of us on the wedding day. What do you think? Really? Green Skylark asked excitedly. What's the truth? You don't know that I am willing to let you be with us, so that we can live together in the future. And the big bear has the ability to feed us both, so I will persuade him to accept yours. It's just, a look of uncertainty appeared on Bayou's face. I'm not sure I can persuade him. That guy is a dead brain. Green Skylark pouted and sighed helplessly. Then the two sisters seemed to have a sharp heart, and at the same time they raised their heads to look in the direction where the figure of the great bear disappeared. The stone bear rides a horse through the mountains. www.wuxiaspot.com. The trail that has been stepped by hunters from various tribes is not difficult to walk. Maybe some trails will be at the end and there will be no way, but if after turning a little circle, a new path can be found. Just like the famous saying of the later Master Lugzam, there is no way in this world. There are more people walking, so there is a way. This intermittent road is the road that the warriors of various tribes took when they went out hunting. In this era, there are only 2 or 3 million Indians in the entire North American continent, and the number of Indians living near the Great Smoky Mountains is even smaller. Shi Xiong estimated that the Aboriginal people living around the Great Smoky Mountain are estimated to be 10,000 or 20,000 at most, and because there are no large plains or grasslands near the Great Smoky Mountain, most of the Aborigines living here are half and half. The lifestyle is mainly farming and half hunting. Is like the Gaoshu tribe, a typical half-plowing and half-hunting tribe. There are not many Aborigines living around here, but they can't stand their lives from here for hundreds or even thousands of years. Therefore, in the mountains around this Great Smoky Mountain, it's not known how many generations of the original residents took a trail with one trail. As long as you walk along one of the roads, there must be a small tribe at the end. Stone Bear is riding a horse like this, passing tribes after tribes along these intermittent paths, and drove the road for 2 consecutive days before returning to the Gaoshu tribe in the evening of the next day. Chapter 211, Dikingshan tribe. The Stone Bear's trip to the Zio tribe and back and forth, plus the 5 days of staying from the Zio tribe, took 9 days in total. I haven't seen it for 9 days. The appearance of the Gaoshu tribe has changed a lot. First of all, the scale of the tribe has expanded a lot. Some newly built wooden houses appeared on the west side of the tribe, which were prepared for the people of the Dikingshan tribe. Not only are there more wooden houses, but the number of tribesmen in the tribe has also increased. These extra tribesmen are all raw faces, and I have never seen a stone bear. These tribes must be members of the Dikingshan tribe. But now the name of the Dikingshan tribe is gone. They have been completely integrated into the Gaoshu tribe. However, not all members of the Dikingshan tribe live in the Gaoshu tribe. Some members of the Dikingshan tribe are still responsible for mining sulfur and lead zinc mines. Shi Xiong intends to set up a factory for purifying sulfur and smelting lead in the Dikingshan tribe, and the factory of tin. After all, the Dikingshan tribe is very close to the lead zinc mine and not far from the anthracite coal mine. It is very appropriate to set up a special smelting factory there. Shi Xiong even plans to build a few more blast furnaces and coking kilns there, the most popular to develop the Dikingshan tribe into a smelting base for the Gaoshu tribe. The location of the Dikingshan tribe is very good, surrounded by sulfur mines, lead zinc mines and anthracite coal mines, and the distance from the hematite mine is much greater than that of the Gaoshu tribe. The most important thing is that the Dikingshan tribe is located on the east bank of the French Broad River and has abundant water resources. You must know that the French Broad River is the Tennessee River formed by the confluence of another Holtons River. The French Broad River is a tributary of the Tennessee River. Of course, the hydraulic resources are abundant. Before the steam engine was developed, water power was the power that Shi Xiong wanted to use most. Therefore, the Dikingshan tribe cannot be completely abandoned. There must be enough people to stay there. Before going to the Zio tribe, Shi Xiong told Hong Yun and Li Lei of his ideas. Now it seems that they have implemented their merger plan very well. which makes Shi Xiong very satisfied. As soon as he entered the tribe on a horse, the stone bear was welcomed by many tribesmen. Those members of the original Dikingshan tribe who did not know the stone bear knew that the big man was the legendary guardian of the Kabul sacrifice. They greeted Shi Xiong respectfully. Of course, what makes Shi Xiong most happy is that not long after he entered the tribe, a group of meat was accompanied by a big dog, madly rolling towards him. This guy hasn't seen him for a few days now, and he was fat again. If it weren't for the black and white color of its fur, its current body shape could really be compared to cunning. Ghost knew how this bear cub could be made so fat by dog milk and milk. The stone bear got off his horse, and Tep immediately rushed over, hugged the stone bear's calf, rubbed his chubby head against the stone bear's leg, and screamed in excitement. It can be seen that the little guy really wants to be bad for the master Shik. Sheila walked over behind Tep, and licked the stone bear's hand with her tongue. The tail turned like a small windmill, and she was also very happy. Went out and went home, and her daughter came to greet him, which naturally made Shi Xiong feel happy. After spending a while with her daughter-in-law, Shi Xiong returned to his wooden house. Not long after returning to the wooden house, Hong Yun came to the door. "Hey, didn't you bring Bai Yun back?" Hong Yun asked in surprise when he saw Shi Xiong's house alone. Of course, this kind of question is more like a trick. Sure enough, Shi Xiong was blushing with these words. If he changed other questions, his old face would definitely not change. But now that Bai Yun is involved, and the only woman he loves in his previous and present 2 lifetimes combined, he immediately can't hold it anymore. Haha, let me just say, since I like them, I quickly take them back and live. The ghost knows why you have to do that wedding. Hong Yun sat on the wooden bench grinningly, and continued to tease him. Protector. Rao is Shi Xiong's old face comparable to the walls of Dishman, but he can't stand Hong Yun's ridicule. So he changed the topic decisively. Sacrifice. I think the people of the Dikingshan tribe are basically integrated into our tribe, and things are pretty good. Of course, don't forget that our 2 tribes were originally a family, but the Dikingshan tribe didn't live with us. Now they come, the children go home. What's the problem? That's right, Shi Xiong said, touching his chin. Just as Hong Yun said, the relationship between the Dikingshan tribe and Gaoshu tribe is the relationship between the child and the mother. Even if the child goes out for a long time, once he returns home, he is the child at home. In the eyes of the mother, no matter which child it is her own child, and it is the same. Those people in Dikingshan have a strong sense of belonging to the tribe, and they soon adapted to life here. Moreover, our tribe has a lot of food, which is much better than Dikingshan. www.wuxiasput.com. You know that when Lilei and I went to their side a few days ago, the warehouses of their tribe had already bottomed out. They can only make a living by hunting these days. Now they have joined us. Naturally you don't have to be hungry. Dear Bear, it's all your credit to you. Also, as the Dikingshan people joined us, the manpower problem in our tribe has been solved to a certain extent. Now the women of Dikingshan have gone to Zioyanshan and replaced them from Zioyanshan. A lot of men, so many more men. Some of the jobs that could not be carried out because of the shortage of manpower in the past have also begun to be carried out. Hong Yun was obviously also very happy, and he babbled about everything that happened in the tribe when he was not in the tribe. All in all, with the addition of more than 100 people from the Dikingshan tribe, the effect is immediate. Now both Hong Yun and Lilei are very supportive of Shi Xiong's plan to accept the tribes that were previously separated from the tribe. In this era, population is the most precious wealth of a tribe. With more people, the demographic dividend enjoyed by the tribe will naturally increase a lot. Before the Gaoshu tribe was unable to feed so many people, now the Gaoshu tribe has this ability, and the effect brought by the return of the Dikingshan tribe is so remarkable. They will naturally not let go of these previously separated tribes. In Hong Yun's words, they are now planning to choose a second tribe to return. Regarding this, Shi Xiong naturally raised his hands in agreement. Chapter 212, Glass. The tribe is now a thriving scene, and Shi Xiong knows that he can't be idle anymore. Shi Xiong gathered the 4 great alchemists, and some work required the hard work of these 4 alchemists. It's been almost 2 months since these 4 alchemists came to the tribe, except for David Adian, who spent a month in the wild last month. The other 3 were raised white and fat. Even Jack Williams, who has been working with Ferguson and has been designing all metal machine tools, his face has become extremely ruddy. It can be seen that the 4 of them live very happily here, especially Bill Gates, who has a daughter. Not only does he like it, but his daughter also plays well with the children in the tribe. The clansmen of the tribe have also completely accepted the 4 of them. After all, there is no direct grievance between Waxiku and the people. The tribe can even accept the Zio tribe. Why can't they accept these Waxiku? Not to mention that these Vasikas still contribute to the tribe, and the people are usually very polite, so the 4 of them are really happy to live in the tribe. Although the days are a bit boring, compared to when they were contract slaves, this place is truly a paradise. Boss, do you want to burn the glass? After hearing the first question raised by Shi Xiong, Jinagist was surprised. At first, these 4 alchemists always called Shi Xiong as Honorable Guardian, but after Shi Xiong's repeated requests, they changed their name to Mr. Guardian. But even this title still made the 4 people somewhat unsatisfied. In the end, they didn't know who started it. They also started to call Stone Bear boss, just like Ferguson. Of course, you can understand this boss as the boss or the boss. Anyway, these 4 people like to call Shi Xiong this way, and Shi Xiong also likes this name. Yes, I'm going to do some research next, but some experiment equipment is not available, especially some glass experiment equipment, so I plan to burn some glass equipment out. Well, who of you can burn glass? Shi Xiong again asked again. Bill Gates, Jack Williams, and David Adian all shook their heads, but Jinagist, who asked just now, raised his hand and said, Boss, I know how to say this glass is burned, but the burnt glass always has some other colors. I'm afraid. What are you afraid of? You can burn glass. The color of the glass ribbon is normal. That's because no decolorizing agent is added when the glass is burned. By the way, how can you burn glass? Decolorizer. Agist's eyes lit up immediately. He did not answer Shi Xiong's question, but excitedly asked, Boss, what is the ratio of decolorizer? What raw materials? Can you tell me something? This kind of fanaticism made Shi Xiong helplessly shook his head. The alchemists at this time are a group of people at 2 extremes. If there is no research involved, they are usually gentle people, but when it comes to research, they will immediately become a group of out-and-out lunatics. Ishikaman knows that as far as Augustus' temperament is concerned, if he doesn't tell him about the decolorizer today, he can pester himself for 3 days and 3 nights without rest. So Shi Xiong waved his hand very simply and said, let's talk about the decolorizing agent. I will tell you the raw materials and the ratio of the decolorizing agent. But you must first answer me how you can burn the glass, and then you burn the glass. What is the level? Because only if I am sure that you can burn glass, I will let you burn glass and tell you about decolorizer. If you can't even burn glass, why should I tell you about decolorizer? Okay, boss, I can tell you with certainty that I can burn glass, and the level of burning is not low. Isn't glass burning just using raw materials such as quartz sand, limestone, feldspar, soda ash, etc., to be burned in a crucible? I used to burn glass when I was in the old world, because when I was young I used to work in a glass factory in my hometown. Jinagista explained how he learned to burn glass and the process of doing the work, and Shi Xiong understood why this alchemist, who is biased towards medicine, would burn glass. Everything is the fault of poverty. There is an idiom in China called think about change when you are poor, which means that when people are poor and can't live, they should change their way of living. Then there is a great possibility to change the current poverty situation. Like Hargreaves, who invented the Jenny machine, and Crompton, who invented the mule machine, this is actually the case. The family was so poor that they invented this epoch-making machine and changed their life. It is estimated that this fellow Jinagista is the same. If it weren't for the poor jingle, how could he be a glass worker when he was young? You must know that glaziers can be a very hard job. Although this guy later decided to devote himself to the great alchemy industry, his life was not good. After crossing the ocean, he became someone else's contract slave. It might as well be a glass worker at home. Now that this guy is chasing himself with him, it can be considered as if he has come. Glass was fired a long time ago. Commercial glass appeared in Europe as early as the 12th century, but glass at that time was an absolute luxury. However, as the method of firing glass and the formulation of raw materials gradually became public, the luxury of glass, which was more expensive than gold at the time, became very common in the 18th century. www.wuxiaspot.com. It cannot be said that it is a bad street, but many ordinary people use glass. There are also those bottles containing whiskey or brandy, all of which are glass. Even in the early 18th century, in order to develop better telescopes, optical glass appeared. Lead, besides being able to burn glass, can you do anything else? For example, glass blowing? Augusta nodded firmly. I know all these things, but I need tools. This is simple. Let Jack prepare it for you. What metal tools do you need? Just find Jack. Jack. Williams nodded at Augusta Westland. Lead. As long as the tools are not too difficult, if you tell me the specifications and models, I can basically provide you with them. Williams has not only followed Ferguson during this period, but also studied the matter of all metal machine tools. Although he has not used a blast furnace, he has used crucibles to make steel many times, and he is already familiar with smelting steel, so he can make some gadgets by himself. It is convenient to have these alchemists. Originally, Shi Xiong planned to burn glass by himself, but he did not expect that one of the 4 alchemists could burn glass. This saved himself a big deal. After the glass burning matter was set, Shi Xiong asked again, which one of you can burn cement? As soon as the question was asked, the 4 alchemists were a little confused by the second monk. Chapter 213, Burn cement. Boss, what is cement? Is it a mixture of mud and water? But wouldn't it become? David Adian thought for a long time and couldn't describe how a mixture of mud and water should be. What is it called? It's not a mixture of mud and water, it's a dry powder to be precise. This powder will become like mud when it encounters water, but it will harden within tens of hours. After hardening, it will after the solid is very, very hard, just like rock. This kind of powder with this characteristic, I call it cement. Shi Xiong patted his head and explained. Only then did he realize that the word cement seems to have not yet appeared. Hearing Shi Xiong's explanation, Brother Li, who had never said anything, seemed to think of something. He asked, Boss, is this kind of thing you are talking about burnt out of limestone containing clay and volcanic ash? Shi Xiong hesitated. He didn't know the cement formula at this time, but he knew that about 10 years ago, a British engineer did research on mixing limestone containing clay and volcanic ash and firing it together. The fired thing is very similar to modern cement. The engineer's research laid the theoretical foundation for modern cement. So Shi Xiong nodded and said, almost. What, Bill, do you know this thing? Bill Gates nodded thoughtfully. If the kind of powder you are talking about has that characteristic, I think the kind of thing I've seen before should be the cement you said. But when I was in England, the kind of thing I have seen is not called cement, but hydraulic lime. After a pause, Brother Gay continued to explain, before I came to the UK, my father had a friend who was a construction engineer. His name was James Smaden. He was very knowledgeable about some building materials. I remember it was about 9 years ago, when Mary hadn't been born. Mr. Smaden came up with a study, which I said was mixed with clay containing limestone and volcanic ash, calcined, then ground into a powder, and finally the thing that comes out can be quickly set with water, and the object after the setting is extremely hard, no different from rock. Mr. Smaden named this powdery thing hydraulic lime. Hearing what Brother Lee said, Shi Xiong knew that the hydraulic lime he had made by Mr. Smaden was actually cement, but it was not as perfect as the later modern cement. In fact, cement was invented a long time ago, and it can be traced back to ancient Rome. In the ancient Roman period, The ancient Romans began to use a mixture of lime and volcanic ash in their buildings. The concrete made by cementing gravel with it was hardened and not only had higher strength, but also resisted the erosion of fresh water or salt water. But the prototype or theoretical basis of modern cement, it seems that the construction engineer named Smedon really came out of it. I didn't expect this Smedon engineer to be a good friend of Brother Lee's father. Shi Xiong asked Brother Lee happily, "Bill, have you seen Mr. Smedon burn cement, or do you know how to burn this thing?" This question is just a casual question by Shi Xiong. Although the family conditions of Brother Lee's family were not very good at that time, he was still a nobleman at any rate. Even a down-and-out nobleman was also a nobleman. How could a nobleman do this kind of work of burning cement? But surprises sometimes come so suddenly. Yes, the brick kiln made by Mr. Smedon at the time for making hydraulic lime is not far from my house, so I often see Mr. Smedon and his workers firing such things. Son, you know, I was actually obsessed with alchemy at that time. I think this kind of magical powder seems to have a certain impetus for my alchemy, so when I was fine at that time, I went over and helped a lot. Times. Do you mean you can burn this kind of thing? Shi Xiong asked in surprise. Burn. It will burn. Brother Lee grabbed the back of his head, but I don't know the proportions of the raw materials inside. Mr. Smedon didn't tell me the specific proportions of the ingredients. I can't burn them without this. Come out. Haha, it's easy. You don't know the ratio of raw materials. I know, Bill, if I tell you to make cement. Oh. It's the ratio of raw materials to make this hydraulic lime. Can you burn it for me? What do I want? Brother Lee scratched his scalp again, grabbed a large piece of snowflakes, hesitated a little and said, I'll try it, I think it should be okay. Okay, it's settled. Jean, Jack, how many manpower you two need? I will equip you, and I will prepare all the raw materials you need. Shi Xiong decided on these two things. This will arrange the personnel and raw materials for you. Shi Xiong really didn't expect that he just asked these two things casually. And it turned out that Augusta and Brother Lee would both do it. Although Brother Lee is still not able to burn real cement, it is really nothing. As long as the ratio of raw materials is adjusted, it is much easier to make cement than to make steel. Moreover, I have the raw material ratio for burning glass and burning cement. Augusta and Lily know how to make it. This saves myself a lot of time and energy. They are responsible for making glass and firing cement. There may be problems like this at the beginning, but given them time, they will definitely get these two things out. Shi Xiong stood up and was about to leave, and Augusta grabbed him. Boss, you haven't told me about the decolorizer. Seeing Augusta's pitiful appearance, Shi Xiong couldn't help but be amused. Although glass in this era has become popular, most of the fired glass has colors, especially blue and green. The main reason for this phenomenon is that iron ions are incorporated into the glass during the firing process, which causes the glass to change color. Most of the crucibles used for firing glass contain iron oxide, and the iron pipes used for glass blowing contain iron oxide. Therefore, after iron ions are incorporated into the glass liquid, if no decolorizing agent is added, the glass will inevitably turn blue or green. The main function of the decolorizer is to replace the iron ions in the glass liquid with colorless high-valent iron oxides, so that the fired glass will no longer show the unsightly blue or green color. This process is a chemical replacement. The process of. Okay, do you know something like arsenic? Augusta nodded. He is an alchemist who is relatively proficient in medicine, and he naturally knows arsenic. Arsenic is not only a commonly used poison in China, but also in Europe, and arsenic is the main ingredient of arsenic. Chapter 214, Highly Toxic. Shi Xiong regretted it a bit after saying the arsenic. As a schoolmaster in his previous life, he certainly knows how to prepare arsenic. And he also knows that arsenic and Glauber's salt are the best decolorizer for glass. But the problem is that Glauber's salt is easy to find, and some of it is readily available in the tribe, but arsenic is not easy to handle. Although there are many arsenic in nature, most of them exist as sulfides or oxides. For example, ralgar is tetra-arsenic tetrasulfide, orpiment is arsenic trisulfide, and arsenic is arsenic trioxide. Whether it is Rauger, orpiment or arsenic, there are many at present. The first two can be found in nature, and the latter can be obtained by heating Rauger. But this elemental arsenic is not so easy to refine. It is not that elemental arsenic is difficult to extract. On the contrary, elemental arsenic is very easy to extract, but the problem is that many highly toxic substances are produced during the refining process. If you are not careful, it is easy to be poisoned in the process of extracting elemental arsenic. Seeing his boss suddenly fell into a kind of weird contemplation, August hesitated for a long time before carefully whispering, "Boss, boss." Augustus' cries awakened Shi Xiong from his contemplation, and he said with an apologetic smile, "I'm sorry, I suddenly remembered something." As he said, Shi Xiong waved his hand again. "Let's not consider arsenic for the time being. Although using arsenic as a decolorizing agent is very good, this thing is poisonous, and if one is not careful, it is easy to be poisoned. So I just thought about not using this." "Boss, I'm not afraid of poisons. I can take care of it." As soon as the boss said that arsenic was not needed, August became anxious at first. Shi Xiong waved his hand to interrupt August's words very simply, and then said very seriously, "I know you are very interested in a new substance, but you have to understand that if you are interested, we can get it slowly in the future. But you can't make things like that just because you're interested. In my eyes, your health is more important than anything else." Words flashed an inexplicable brilliance in the eyes of the four alchemists, but August today still wanted to argue that the stone bear stopped him. "Tell you the truth, just now I said that using arsenic as a decolorizing agent is a very irresponsible argument. You are more proficient in medicine. You naturally know the toxicity of arsenic, right?" August nodded. Before the more toxic cyanide appeared, the arsenic, which can be easily prepared, was the most popular poison in Europe. 81.8 1z.co Arsenic is the main component of arsenic, but arsenic exists in the form of sulfides and oxides in nature. You should know Rauger, right? Augustitrix nodded again. Although he didn't know exactly what sulfide and oxide meant, he knew that Stone Bear would not fool him. Rauger is arsenic sulfide, and it is the most common arsenic sulfide in nature. Rauger can form orpiment when exposed to the sun, and if the Rauger is heated, it will emit white smoke with a smell of garlic. This white smoke is arsenic, which is the oxide of arsenic. You should know all of this, right? I know that heating Rauger can get arsenic, and also know that Rauger can get orpiment when exposed to the sun. Whether orpiment or arsenic is very poisonous, Augusta answered honestly. Although the other three alchemists did not understand medicine, they had also heard of the famous arsenic. They naturally stayed away from this highly toxic substance. Shi Xiong smiled slightly. Whether it is Rauger, orpiment, or arsenic, it is very easy to obtain, but the elemental arsenic in it is difficult to extract. And even if it can be extracted, it is easy to produce highly toxic substances during the extraction process. You will be poisoned if you are not careful. I don't want to cause you to be poisoned by refining elemental arsenic. Do you understand what I mean, boss? But I can extract arsenic. I know how to extract it, and as long as I pay attention, it will not be poisoned. Shi Xiong smiled slightly and waved his hand again. I know you can extract arsenic, and I also know, don't you just heat soap and orpiment together? New 81 Chinese website update. The fastest mobile terminal. https://Augusta had seen a ghost expression on his face. Boss, how do you know this method? Why don't I know this method? The German alchemist Albert Magnus used this method to extract elemental arsenic from arsenic compounds more than 500 years ago. This method is used by your alchemists. It has been circulating in China for a long time. Augusta nodded and admitted, but he still had an unbelievable look in his eyes when he looked at the stone bear. Well, don't explore how I knew it. I can only tell you that I know almost everything you know, and I know a lot of things you don't know. Well, let's refine the matter of elemental arsenic. Stop here. Let's not talk about it anymore. Considering your health and safety, the four of you are forbidden to fiddle with these highly toxic things in the future. I don't want to just save you from and you will give yourself to yourself, plain to death." The 3 other alchemists except Augusta laughed, but Augusta still had a gloomy expression. Shi Xiong knows why he is upset. The alchemists of this era or of this virtue. www.wuxiaspot.com. It feels like there is a big pile of gold in front of you. You only need to take a step to get to this gold. But it happened that this tuft of gold was enclosed in an indestructible bulletproof glass cabinet. Alright, let's not be sullen. The decolorizer is not only arsenic, we can also replace it with other things. Huh? Boss, is there anything better than arsenic? Shi Xiong shook his head and said, replace arsenic with other things. The effect will naturally not be so good, but it is definitely enough. Glauber salt knows, right? No, don't we have a lot of purified nardite in our tribe? Boss, don't you say that using the nardite can replace arsenic? Replacement cannot be replaced. But with Glauber salt, the glass you burn out will not be so ugly. After a pause, Shi Xiong continued to explain, in fact, the real chemical decolorizing agent is to add about 2 French pounds of arsenic and about 5 French pounds of Glauber's salt to 100 kilograms of raw glass for burning glass. The mixture of arsenic and Glauber's salt is the best decolorizing agent, but arsenic is not available now. If we only use Glauber's salt, the effect may be worse, but it is not much worse. Even if the burnt glass has different colors, it will definitely not be a lot. Yes, it's okay to use it as experimental equipment. No matter what decolorizer is used, the fundamental purpose is to replace the iron ions in the glass liquid with high-valent iron compounds, so that the glass will not produce green or blue. Arsenic is good as a glass decolorizer, but it is not irreplaceable. At least there is Glauber salt, which can also decolor the glass. Chapter 215, Basis. After comforting Augusta, Shi Xiong told Brother Li about the raw material ratio for burning cement. Compared to burning glass or glass decolorizer, burning cement is undoubtedly much easier. In addition, the Lid brother himself has seen how to burn cement, and he has also seen the kind of cement kiln that burns cement. So as long as he tells him the raw materials and proportions of the cement, it will not take long for this guy to be able to burn up to the standard. The cement comes. As for why Shi Xiong knows how to burn cement, it is actually very simple. In his previous life, there was a small cement factory in the town where his hometown was. The strong laborers in the village would go to the cement factory to mine raw materials during the slack. During the winter vacation, Shi Xiong did this job. So at that time he became interested in the raw materials used for burning cement. Later, he specifically asked the high school chemistry teacher Wu, who told him the ratio of carbonate cement, and Shi Xiong remembered. It's just that Shi Xiong doesn't know how to make cement. Originally, Shi Xiong wanted to do a few experiments, but now that he has the Lid brother, this matter is solved. The purpose of burning glass is to carry out some chemical experiments, because chemical experiments in the laboratory can be said to be the basis of all chemical projects. The first industrial revolution has already begun. In a few years, with Watt's improvement of the steam engine, the flames of the industrial revolution will burn completely, and no one can stop it. Once the first industrial revolution unfolds vigorously, then the process of European modernization will completely enter the fast lane. If it is not pursued at this time, it will never be able to catch up in the future, and lose the technological leadership. The entire North America will be completely fallen into the hands of Europeans, just like the original development process in history. Therefore, Shi Xiong must narrow the technological gap with Europe as quickly as possible during the period before the first industrial revolution completely unfolds. Therefore, various experiments need to be carried out now. The current chemical experiments in Europe are when the little lotus is showing its sharp horns, and there are almost none on the New World in North America. That's why Shi Xiong tried his best to find these alchemists to help him do various experiments. Although the experimental process in the laboratory is far from the formation of a real industrial preparation, it is the foundation after all. If you don't even have the foundation, it would be a joke to catch up with Europe. Even if the laboratory produces results and cannot form a large-scale industrial preparation process, Can we do small-scale production first? For example, various acids and various salts are the foundation of the chemical industry. 10,000 steps back, we won't do it for the time being in the chemical industry, but we have to deal with this military industry. Whether it is nitrocellulose, smokeless gunpowder or thunderbolt, it needs to be realized in the laboratory. To be honest, Shi Xiong has no hope that the New World can form a certain chemical ability in a short period of time. However, through the establishment of the laboratory and the addition of his own golden fingers, Shi Xiong felt that it was still very interesting to come up with flash hiders, thunderbolt, metal makeup and even smokeless gunpowder and even more powerful jokers in advance. So, no matter what you think about it, it is quite necessary to establish a chemistry laboratory. Even if the laboratory is very simple and low level, it is better than the laboratory established by the alchemists in Europe now. The most important thing is that the alchemists or scientists in Europe do not have a clear research goal, but they have it. As a traversing person, if you don't make good use of the golden finger of prophecy, wouldn't you be sorry for the countless traversing people in countless parallel universes? Glass-fired is to make various kinds of glass experimental equipments for experiments, so as to build the most basic frame of a laboratory. As for what equipment is needed in the laboratory in the future, it has to be developed and manufactured slowly, but what is certain is that the laboratory must be developed and carried on. If burning glass is to prepare for the laboratory, then burning cement is different. If you compare the first industrial revolution to a person, then the heart is undoubtedly Watt's improved steam engine. Only this improved steam engine is qualified as the source of power for the first industrial revolution. In fact, if Shi Xiong wanted to, he could completely improve the steam engine before Watt. He was not sure when he was himself before, but now with Jack Williams, Stone Bear is 80% or even 100% sure that he has improved the steam engine before Mr. Watt. For Shi Xiong, he knows many theories and even small tricks, but his hands-on ability is not strong. He can do things he has done in the previous life, but he can only do theoretical guidance for things like developing machine tools and improving steam engines. However, with Comrade Williams and Shi Xiong's golden fingers, Shi Xiong is confident to come up with many mechanical things, including an improved steam engine that can serve as the heart of this person. As for the bones and flesh and blood of this person, they are steel and cement. New 81 Chinese network update. The fastest mobile terminal, https:// Even in the 21st century, steel and cement are the most indispensable basic materials. www.wuxiaspot.com. Almost all infrastructures are inseparable from these two materials. Now Shi Xiong has no worries about steel. Although he has not been able to make large-scale steel making, he has thoroughly mastered the steel-making process and will only wait for the right conditions to promote it on a large scale. But cement, Shi Xiong really doesn't have it now, but this thing is indispensable. Before the appearance of large-caliber artillery, the role of fortresses was very obvious, especially in this era. The artillery in the European armies fired solid rounds, and the high strength and thick walls have good resistance to such solid rounds. If cement intervenes, then castles or fortresses built with large blocks of rock are still very effective in resisting enemy attacks. New 81 Chinese network update. The fastest computer terminal, https:// And with cement and steel, there are unparalleled advantages in road construction or bridge construction. Now the entire New World of North America is barren. If you want to link these barren areas effectively, road construction is indispensable. Therefore, the development of cement must be started now, and it will save you when you need cement. For the future development of the Gaoshu tribe, Shi Xiong has a clear and definite plan. Everything is difficult at the beginning, but no matter how difficult it is, in order to avoid the fate of being slaughtered by the descendants of European immigrants in the United States in the future, the North American Indians must start preparing now, and begin to prepare how to resist the slaughter of the Americans. Steel, cement, and all kinds of weapons and ammunition that lead this era are the foundation for Stone Bear to resist the Americans in the future. Chapter 216, Machine tool. Ginagasta is responsible for burning glass and blowing various experimental utensils. In addition to the ratio of raw materials, he is even better than Shi Xiong. Lily brother is responsible for burning lime. In this respect, Shi Xiong does not have much advantage compared to him. The only advantage is the ratio of raw materials. Anyway, these two things are left to the two of them, and Shi Xiong is not worried about what they will cause. After all, these two things are not very difficult things. As long as there are raw materials and people, it is almost impossible to make mistakes. At the beginning, Stone Bear had never made steel. Didn't he also try to make steel out? As for Jack Williams and David Adian, they have more important things to do. They can't participate in the burning of cement and glass. Williams has made great progress in the research of all-steel machine tools. All his current thoughts are placed on this kind of all-metal machine tools. In fact, things like machine tools, like glass and cement, appeared very early. The earliest tree lathe appeared more than 2,000 years ago, which can be said to be the embryonic form of machine tools. This kind of tree lathe is terribly crude, but it is really a tool for processing objects with the help of external forces. The main function of the tree lathe is cutting. A platform composed of two logs is erected between two large trees that are relatively close. One log is fixed and the other log is thinner and cannot be moved but can be rotated. At this time, people will choose a tough branch from the two big trees, and then tie the upper end of a rope to this branch. The rope hangs down and loops around the thin log twice, and finally hangs to a height close to the ground. Pull a rope buckle, even if this kind of machine is installed. When working, the worker stepped down on the rope buckle, and the rope turned the thin log while pulling down the tough branch at the upper end. Then the worker loosened his foot, and the tough branch would drive the rope upwards, again driving the thin log to rotate. The fine logs are equipped with hard and sharp shells or stone knives. As the fine logs rotate back and forth, these shells or stone knives will cut the objects fixed on the fixed log to complete the object. Cutting. This is a typical process of processing objects using the elasticity of human branches as power. You can think of the fixed thick log as the bed of the machine tool, which is used to fix the machine parts. The thin log can be regarded as the workpiece, and the stone knife or shell can be regarded as the tool. The rope is the transmission system, and the worker's feet and the tough branch can be regarded as the power system. This is the most primitive tree lathe. But human beings are always developing, and the lathe is also advancing with the times. A tree lathe that has been used for N years can't always be hung on a tree, so in the Middle Ages, there appeared a pedal lathe that used pedals to rotate a wooden crankshaft and drive a wooden flywheel, and then to a wooden spindle to make it rotate. It is also called an elastic rod lathe, but except that the tool is replaced with a metal tool, the operating principle is exactly the same as the original tree lathe. In 1395, a real bar machine tool appeared in Germany. About 200 years after the emergence of the bar machine tool, the Ming dynasty of China published a strange book called Tanggong Ki Wu. This book records the various dynasties of the early and middle Ming dynasty and the previous dynasties. Technology, including detailed records of grinders. New 81 Chinese network update. The fastest mobile terminal. https:// This kind of grinder uses a principle similar to a pedal machine in the Middle Ages in Europe. It uses a pedal method to rotate a metal plate and work with sand and water to process jade. 81.8. 1z.co. Although this type of grinder is called a grinder, its function is not only grinding, but also cutting. This kind of grinder has many kinds of tools, one of which is called punch mount. The function of this mount is mainly to hollow out the inside of the jade. Its function is similar to that of modern boring machines. The name of another kind of knife is zam mount, and the main function of this mount is to cut jade. Whether it is a tree lathe, a rod lathe or a china grinder, the tools are fixed. But later in France, an engineer named Besson designed a lathe for turning screws that slides the tool through the screw rod, and the tool is finally no longer fixed in one position. This lathe already has the appearance of a modern lathe, but unfortunately, the lathe designed by Besson has not been promoted for unknown reasons. It is only used in small industries such as watch processing. At the same time, the Italian legend Leonardo da Vinci drew conceptual sketches of lathes, boring machines, threading machines and internal grinders in the early 16th century, which contained cranks, flywheels, tops and bearings. But like the best lathe, da Vinci's design just stays on paper. Generally speaking, before Watt improved the steam engine, the lathes all over the world were at an extremely primitive level. This is mainly related to the selection of props, the components of the transmission system and the source of power. Although design concepts such as Besson and da Vinci have also appeared www.wuxiaspot.com the real modern lathe has never appeared. In fact, even if it is Watt's improved steam engine, without the barrel boring machine invented by the British John Wilkinson, Watt's steam engine not only cannot be promoted on a large scale, it can even be regarded as a failed work. At that time, when Watt improved the steam engine, an important process was that he made a 38-inch thick steel cylinder, but this cylinder forged with a manual hammer can really be called full of loopholes, and the work efficiency is extremely low. At this time, John Wilkinson has developed the world's first boring machine that uses water wheels as power. Only at that time Wilkinson made this boring machine to process the barrel of the artillery, so this boring machine was also called barrel boring machine. It's just that Wilkinson contacted Watt on the initiative after learning that Watt's cylinders were processed very badly, and then used the barrel boring machine he invented to reprocess Watt's leaky cylinder, and finally met the requirements of a real cylinder. So Wilkinson began to cooperate with Watt and became the only supplier of Watt's steam engine cylinders. In order to boring larger cylinders, Wilkinson developed a cylinder boring machine based on the barrel boring machine, which is used to process larger models of cylinders. John Wilkinson created a precedent for modern machine tools. But now it is 9 years before Wilkinson developed the world's first barrel boring machine, and the alchemist Jack Williams under Shi Xiong has made a huge breakthrough in the research of all metal machine tools. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217, Huge Error. Boss, these are the gears and bearings I made. What do you think? Jack's face was excited, pointing to the large and small gears and several bearings placed on the iron workbench. Said. Ishikama picked up 2 gears of different sizes and looked at it carefully. These 2 gears, one large and one small, are obviously just cast, and they have not even been polished. However, Shi Xiong put these 2 gears together and meshed with each other, and found that although the 2 gears are not the same size, the meshing between the gears is very good. Boss, I used the formulas you gave me to calculate carefully, and then I got some data, and then I opened the mold based on the data, and got these gears. Before you came, I simply tried these gears. The effect is very good. If you sharpen it again, the meshing effect between each other will be better. Okay, Jack, these gears you made are very good. At least I don't see any problems. But you need to carry out rigorous experiments and long trial runs before you can actually use these gears. Otherwise problems will easily occur. Don't worry. I will definitely carry out rigorous experiments and long-term test runs. After all, these things are all used in hydraulic machinery. Once a small error occurs, it will cause a lot of loss. Ishikama put down the gears in his hand with satisfaction. In any case, he could see that these gears were absolutely carefully calculated and cast. Although Shi Xiong is not very proficient in this aspect of knowledge, he has also learned related things somehow, and these gears feel very good. He picked up another bearing casually. These are cylindrical roller bearings with large heads, but compared to gears, this kind of large cylindrical roller bearings is a bit unsightly. Whether it is the inner ring or outer ring of the bearing, or the cylindrical roller inside, the machining process can be seen to be very rough, and there are even 2 cylindrical rollers that can be seen to be irregular with the naked eye. Shi Xiong squeezed the bearing with his hands and said, Jack, Our processing technology still needs to be improved. I am afraid that bearings with this precision will have to be scrapped in a short time. Jack, William's face immediately flushed, and he whispered, "Boss, I need time to improve the processing technology, but now this bearing in your hand can be said to be the best bearing." Ishikuma nodded slightly, but said nothing. The time for the appearance of the bearing is not short. The early transportation method of placing a row of wooden poles under a row of skid plates is actually the earliest form of linear motion bearing. When Shi Xiong made an oil press last year to transport the trunk of that big oak tree from halfway down the mountainside, a lot of logs were placed on the base of the trunk. In fact, the principle of linear motion bearings was used. Leonardo also described ball bearings in the early 16th century. The cage ball bearings described by Galileo in the 17th century were actually the earliest rolling bearings with cages, and at the end of the 17th century, the British Warlow has designed a real ball bearing. Don't look down on this thing, but it occupies the same irreplaceable position as gears in mechanical manufacturing. However, the accuracy requirements of bearings are much higher than those of gears. At least in the modern era, the accuracy requirements of bearings are much higher than those of gears. The gears that Ishikuma saw just now were also cast, but those gears can be used on some low-speed mechanical equipment as long as they are slightly polished. Although the bearing in hand is a cylindrical roller bearing, the machining accuracy is not as high as that of a ball bearing. But the machining accuracy of this bearing obviously cannot meet the requirements. However, Stone Bear can also understand the problem that Jack is facing. After all, this is an Indian tribe, which can be said to be a poor place. It is already very good to be able to make the bearing in his hand here, and Shi Xiong has no way to ask Jack to make a better bearing under the current circumstances. At present, the metal processing capabilities of the Gaoshu tribe are only the most primitive sand mold casting and hammer forging. Other thermal processing conditions such as injection casting, die casting, spin casting, and directional solidification are simply not available. Let alone cold working processes like cold rolling, cold drawing, cold forging, stamping, and cold extrusion. As for precision casting, it is something that only exists on paper. You are expecting to use sand mold casting to cast precision metal parts that can only be obtained by precision casting. That is purely a joke. If you want to forge precision workpieces with a hammer, it is better to use sand mold casting. 81.8.1z.co. However, under the guidance of Ishikuma and Ferguson, Jack is currently preparing to try the lost wax method. In other words, the lost wax method is the highest purity metal thermal processing technology that can be achieved under current conditions. Knows that this kind of thing is impatient. Just like the previous life, the metal processing technology has been improved and upgraded for hundreds of years, and the processing accuracy still has such limitations. This thing is the most basic thing. If you want to be anxious, you can't be anxious, you can only take it step by step. But Shi Xiong also understands that if he has a golden finger, this process will inevitably be greatly shortened, but it is also not anxious. It seems that the bearing in my hand www.wuxiaspad.com belongs to the kind of bearing with a stop on the outer ring. The inner ring and the outer ring are casted fairly well, at least the two rings look very round. But the rolling elements inside are the 15 cylindrical rollers, which is really a bit horrible. Bearing is a support body that supports the rotation of machinery, whether it is high-speed or low-speed rotation. The friction coefficient and rotation accuracy of rotation are strictly required. The smaller the friction coefficient and the higher the rotation accuracy, the better the bearing. But whether it is friction coefficient or rotation accuracy, it is basically the machining accuracy of the bearing as a whole, especially the rolling elements. But for the cylindrical roller of this bearing that Jack made, the machining accuracy error is really visible to the naked eye. It is no exaggeration to say that this kind of cylindrical roller is like later generations cutting a steel bar into several sections and then stuffing it between the inner ring and the outer ring of the bearing. Starting Ishikuma can only helplessly shook his head. Jack, try to use the lost wax method to cast this cylindrical roller. Although The lost wax method was used to cast bronzes in ancient China. It is undeniable that the casting accuracy of the lost wax method is much higher than that of ordinary sand casting. Even Ferguson used the lost wax method when casting the barrel of the new rifle. Well, pay attention to communicate with Ferguson. He has a deep understanding of this casting process. Jack quickly nodded his head to show that he knew. Peace, Bowen. Thank I gave my hand to the first kiss for the 2,000 rewards. Please remember the domain name of the book's first publication. Mobile version reading URL, Chapter 218. Akshaka. The development of the Gaoshu tribe is booming, and the tribe's faces are all smiling. Can be on the banks of the Mi River and the two banks of the lower Tennessee River, thousands of miles to the west of the Gaoshu tribe. At this time, it became an undercurrent surging because of a piece of news. Chief Hatch, living in the land of giants, north, the French are looking for a tribe of Cherokees, right on the shore of Big Bend. But I don't know the name of the tribe, but the French said, the person who provided news about the tribe will receive 5 war horses and 50 bags of food. If anyone can destroy the tribe, he will receive 100 war horses, a large amount of food and other generous rewards from the French. Chief Hatch, I think if your tribe goes out to find this tribe, or even destroy this tribe, then your tribe will definitely be rewarded by the French. Big Bend, which is a certain person on the west bank of the lower reaches of the Tennessee River in a Chickasaw tribe. Several high-ranking tribes are sitting together, and a guy with a small figure but gleaming eyes said to the leader sitting on the rock in the upper position. If Shi Xiong saw this scene, he would definitely laugh. Compared with the current Gaoshu tribe, this tribe is much larger in scale, and it is estimated that at least it must have thousands of people, but this tribe is too backward, even behind the previous Longhair cattle tribe. Just like the high levels of these tribes, they don't even have a bench or a stone bench or the like. These stones that are all covered with cement are the thrones of the tribe's highest power controller. The leader of this tribe is very burly, but there is a flash of light in his eyes from time to time. It can be seen that this is definitely a guy who is thick on the outside and thin on the inside. The leader shook his head slightly and said, "We'd better not mix this matter. I don't think we can mix this matter anymore." "Why?" "Dear Chief Hatch, why can't you participate in this matter? This is a good thing, and the rewards given by Vasiku are so many. If your tribe can find the Cherokee tribe and eliminate them, then these rewards will all become your tribe's." "Leader Hatch, there are 100 war horses. With these war horses, your strength will immediately surpass that damned Littich the tribe." The thin man did not give up and continued to persuade the leader. The persuasion of the thin man was not unattractive, but the leader didn't seem to be moved by it. But he still looked at the woman who had been sitting next to him and said nothing. This woman is not young anymore. She is wearing a distinctive costume, and the headdress on her head is very different from the people here. These people in the room are all men. She is the only woman, but everyone looks at her with respect. This seemingly young woman is the sacrifice of this tribe, the well-known Hickey tribe of the Chickasaw tribe. Feeling the questioning eyes of the tribal leader around him, the priest who has not spoken said, "We'd better not participate in this matter." After hearing this news, I always feel uneasy. Akshka, since you came from Vasi after Chu brought back this news, I once prayed to the Great Thunder God, hoping that the Great Thunder God would give us pointers, but the Great Thunder God did not give me any pointers, which shows that the Great God of Thunder, the of Thunder, does not approve of our participation in this matter. New 81 Chinese website update. The fastest computer terminal, https:// The priest seemed to be reluctant to speak. After saying these few words, he closed his eyes slightly and didn't make a sound anymore, but everyone in the room bowed their heads slightly towards the priest, and it took a long time before they raised their heads. At this time, the leader of the tribe said, "Akshaka, I know that you, as the liaison officer of our Chickasaw tribe, often deal with those Vasichus. The reward given by Vasichus this time is indeed very moving, but our Hickey tribe is one of the 4 guardian tribes of the Chickasaw royal court. Our warriors cannot leave this area near the royal court." After a pause, the leader of Hatch looked at Akshaka, who was a little frustrated, and said, Akshaka, I know what you mean. You and the Whistle Snake guy have an enmity, so you hope the strength of the Hatch tribe will grow, overtake the Reddick tribe and take revenge for you. But do you know that the Whistle Snake has disappeared for almost 5 months, and the 300 elite warriors of their Reddick tribe have disappeared with them? Hearing this, Oak raised his head abruptly, looking at Leader Hatch with a look of disbelief, and asked, Lord Hatch, what you said is true. That whistling snake is really true. Did it disappear? Chief Hatch nodded affirmatively. Akshaka, you should know that the Whistle Snake guy has been leading the rapid development of the Reddick tribe, because he wants to replace the King's Court and become the King's Court of our Chikasha, but our 4 guardian tribes will not agree to this. Now the Whistle Snake and his 300 elite warriors have suddenly disappeared, and our 4 guardian tribes can also breathe a sigh of relief. Aksha just nodded. Although he came from the Chikasa Palace, he was an out-and-out Retishan long ago. Only a long time ago, before the Whistle Snake became the leader of the Reddick tribe. www.wuxiaspa.com. He left the Reddick tribe and moved all the way to the palace of Chikasha, and finally relied on able to speak some French and became the liaison officer between the Chikasa's court and the French. Of course he knows the ambition of the Whistle Snake. Although Akshaka has been running between the Chikasa Palace and the French fortresses for these years, he has been paying attention to the Reddick tribe and that, the Whistle Snake with whom he has a deep feud. But what makes Akshaka more and more desperate is that the original strength of the Reddick tribe has been growing rapidly after the Whistle Snake became the leader, and even in the past 2 years, the Reddick tribe has become the Chikasha tribe as the second largest tribe after the royal court, and even the 4 guardian tribes of the royal court are very afraid of the Reddick tribe. New 81 Chinese network update. The fastest mobile terminal. https:// Under this situation, Akshaka knew that it would be difficult for him to take revenge. After all, the Whistle Snake had become the leader of the second largest tribe of the Chikasha tribe, far beyond his ability as a liaison officer. By the way, he actually heard the news that the Whistling Snake has been missing for more than 5 months here. What does disappear for more than 5 months? There are also 300 elite warriors from the Reddick tribe who have disappeared for so long. The only answer is that the Whistle Snake and his men have dived in these mountains and swamps. The news made Akshaka almost jumped up with joy, but he finally suppressed the ecstasy in his heart, and said in a trembling voice, Dear Leader Hatch, can you tell me about the Whistle Snake and him? How did the warrior disappear? Chapter 219. The tribe where the king of demons sits. The Hickey tribe is a tribe with a long history of the Chikasha tribe. Long before the Cherokee moved south, the Hickey tribe lived in the source area of the Hickey River and guarded the royal court of the Chikasha. It is the oldest tribe among the 4 guardian tribes of the Chikasha royal court. Because it is the guardian tribe of King Chikasha, the current leader of the Hickey tribe, the Hickey leader, still knows a lot about Akshaka. Akshaka means revenge in Chikasha's language, but this name is not the original name of this thin man. As for the original name of this thin man, Chief Hatch doesn't know. Even everyone who knows Akshaka, no one knows the original name of this thin man. Of course, no one knows why this thin man named himself Akshaka. They only knew that this thin man was from the Reddick tribe, and that his new wife and his parents died in a fire. At that time, this thin man was hunting outside with his companions. When he came back, a good house had become a pile of rubble. So Akshaka left the Reddick tribe alone and wandered outside for many years. It is said that he was once captured by soldiers in a French fortress south of the river and worked as a slave for a period of time, but he succeeded. Escaped. In the past few years as a slave, Akshaka learned to speak some French. Later, he came to the Chikasa Palace. By speaking French, he successfully became the Chikasa Palace and 2 Frenchmen in the north and west, liaison officer of the fortress. The so-called liaison officer is actually a translation for later generations. But Akshaka has done a good job in this position. At least the French and the Chikasas have been getting along very well over the years, and a large part of the reason is because of this small Akshaka. Therefore, even if it is the leader of the Hickey tribe, one of the 4 guardian tribes of the Chikasha Palace, the Hickey leader appreciates this Akshaka. Therefore, After hearing this request from Akshaka, Chief Hatch nodded and explained what he knew. As far as I know, it was when the full moon of the long night was just entered. The whistle snake did not know for any reason, contacted Vasiku in the northern Akron fortress, and then rode along the 4 ships of Vasiku. Big Bend is going upstream, and it is estimated that it is going to carry out a sneak attack on which Cherokee tribe. Akshaka, you should know that the reason why the Redditch tribe has been able to often annihilate the Cherokee tribe in recent years is mainly with this kind of sneak attack. Akshaka still knows this, so he nodded. As far as I know, Chief Hatch organized a little bit of language to continue speaking. At that time, the Whistle Snake organized a total of 300 of the most elite fighters, and other fighters from the Redditch tribe also started. The harassment of the Cherokee line of defense is obviously to cover the actions of these 300 elite soldiers. Moreover, it is said that 100 elite musketeers were dispatched in the Akron fortress of the French in the north. Yes, Honorable Chief Hatch, I know about this. Major Armand of the Akron fortress personally led 100 musketeers and led 4 sailing ships together. However, Major Armand seems to have disappeared. And disappeared for a long time even with those 4 sailing ships. Akshaka continued. He is the liaison officer of the Chickasaw, and the Akron fortress in the north is also a place he often goes to, so he naturally knows some news. Chief Hatch nodded and said, this is actually obvious. The French musketeers and the Redditch tribe fighters were dispatched together. Damn, 100 Vasiku musketeers combined with 300 Redditch tribesmen, elite fighters. Even our tribe can hardly resist this force. Those Vasiku musketeers are too powerful, not to mention there are 4 sailing ships with artillery. Akshaka and the other people in the room nodded, although they didn't want to admit it. It was the case. Regardless of whether the Hickey tribe is a large tribe with more than 1,000 people, or the guardian tribe of the Chickasaw royal court, if you really want to fight with this kind of team of 100 musketeers and 300 elite fighters, Hickey, there is a high possibility that the tribe will lose. First release https://https:// Those Vasiku musketeers are so powerful. They are simply not comparable to tribal warriors with bows, arrows and bone spears. If you add those 4 sailing ships, then the Hickey tribe can only flee from the wind. If those Vasiku musketeers can resist by relying on the superiority of their numbers, then the artillery on those sailing ships is simply something more powerful than the devil, and once the thing fires, it cannot be stopped at all. But it's just such a powerful force. It just disappeared so suddenly. This is simply. Chief Hatch shook his head. It seems that he can't find any words to describe this incredible thing. The silent priest suddenly said, the great god of thunder said that it is something that can be done by the king of demons hidden in the deepest part of the darkness. www.wuxiaspot.com. Those Vasiku and Reti, the whistle snake of the strange tribe, angered the king of the devil, and they will be completely swallowed by the king of the devil. Such a cold sentence suddenly came out, and several people in the room suddenly felt a little chilly around them. After a long silence, Chief Hickey said, so, we can't participate in this matter, even if Vasiku's reward is very generous, but we have to have the life to get it. You have also heard about the sacrifice. At the end of the Big Bend, there may be a king of the devil hidden. If we insist on participating, we will not only violate the guidance of the of thunder, but also anger the terrible king of the devil. Finally, this very wise Hatch leader said again, Akshaka, in fact, you and I should all understand that it should be those French who use us as swordsmen. There are so many tribes along the Great Bend. Not only are we cut, the tribe of the Kesa, the tribe of the Cherokee, and the tribe of the Yuchi, so many tribes. How can we distinguish the tribe that swallowed the whistle snake and the 100 musketeers? Besides, even if we know which tribe it is, can we do it at will? Don't forget, that tribe swallowed a whole 100 musketeers and 300 Redditch tribe elite warriors. It is a tribe with the king of devil. How can our tribe be able to deal with it? The reason why those French people did this, I think they were not sure to deal with that tribe before they came up with this trick. This is actually a trap for our tribe. However, we will never jump into this trap. It is our tribe's duty to protect the royal court, Chief Hatch said with certainty. Chapter 220, Bloody Wind. Akshaka's lobbying of the Hatch tribe was not successful, but he was not upset. As a Chickasaw and one of the liaison officers between the Chickasaw tribe and the French, Akshaka did not lobby the Hokie tribe out of bad intentions. He just wanted to use this and the powerful Hadachi tribe established a closer relationship, so as to make certain preparations for his future revenge. But Akshaka learned from the head of Hatch that the whistle snake had been missing for nearly 5 months, and his thoughts of revenge have faded a lot. But after he came out of the Hokie tribe, he continued to advance to other Chickasaw tribes, and he still seemed to establish a good relationship with other powerful tribes in the tribe through this matter. Whether Akshaka succeeded in lobbying other tribes, others don't know, but this bounty issued from the Akron fortress spread throughout the surrounding area within a few hundred miles in a short period of time. Many tribes are also eager for this reward. After all, the reward given by the French is really attractive. Food and other rewards are good to say, but those 100 war horses directly hit the G-spots of many Indian tribes. This is not the time when the Indians went on horseback more than 100 years later. At this time, the horses from the Old World were still quite rare and precious among the Indian tribes, especially before the Indians mastered the skills of how to breed war horses. The supply of war horses can only count on those Vasicus. 100 war horses. This is extremely precious wealth for any tribe, so before this reward spread, not only many Chickasaw tribes were tempted, but also the Yuchi in the south, the Missourians in the north, and the west. Many tribes of Arkansas are also tempted. There are even many tribes that are not only tempted, but they simply acted directly. The tribes that originally lived on both sides of the middle and lower reaches of the Big Bend are out of luck. Because of the limitation of the terrain, the tribes living on both sides of the middle and lower reaches of the Big Bend are mostly small in scale. There are 300 to 400 people. Even if they are large scale, most of the tribes living in this area have only more than 100 people. Small tribe. After all, the area in the middle and lower reaches of the Big Bend is a swamp except for the mountains. If there are too many people in a tribe, it will not be able to feed it at all. It can only be dispersed and dispersed again, finally forming the current pattern. And originally this harsh terrain is an excellent protective layer for these small tribes, but in the eyes of some crazy tribes who are excited by this reward, this kind of terrain is nothing at all. In the beginning, these crazy tribes can also strictly distinguish the Cherokee tribe from other tribes. After all, the rewards from the Akron fortress are to find a Cherokee tribe by name. But as time goes on, many crazy tribes don't even distinguish this. What distinguishes this? As long as it's not a tribe that you know and know well, just take it directly. Anyway, the French can't tell whether these people are Cherokee or Chickasaw. Of course, almost all tribes doing this are mostly Missourians and Arkansas. After all, for the tribes of these two tribes, whether it is the mighty Cherokee or the Chickasaw, they are not their friends, but competitors. All tribes living on both sides of the middle and lower reaches of Big Bend, except for the Cherokee, are the Chickasaws. Just kill. What if you find the Cherokee tribe that the French want? Moreover, the Arkansas and Missourians are very ruthless. They know this area is the territory of the Chickasaws and Cherokees, so when they act, several tribes often unite and act together. Even if they encounter the mighty Chickasaw tribe or Cherokee tribe, they are not afraid, they just turn around and leave. This kind of group attack caused a storm on both banks of the river downstream of Big Bend. The location of Fort Akron is very important. Although the fortress guards the intersection of the Ohio River and the Big Bend, the location of the fortress is also located in the Chickasaw, Arkansas, Missouri, and Cherokee confluence of forces. Regardless of whether it is a Cherokee or Chickasaw, or Arkansas or Missouri, the relationship is not very harmonious. In the past, only Chickasaws, Arkansas and Missourians lived in this area, but as the Cherokees moved south, they occupied the large area where Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina and Virginia met, far away from the original. The Aborigines living in this area are all forced to migrate out. It can be said that whether they are Chickasaws, Arkansas or Missourians, They are very vigilant towards the mighty Cherokees, especially Chickasaws, who suffered the most after the Cherokees moved south. Between the two tribes, people's brains are almost broken into dogs' brains. In contrast, the Arkansas west of the river and the Missourians to the north are less affected, but they are unwilling to see the Cherokee continue to expand westward. The Cherokees have become stronger and stronger in the 300 years since they moved south. www.wuxiaspot.com. Once the Cherokees expand to the west, if the weak Chickasaws do not want to be eliminated, if it does, it will inevitably continue to move west and north, and it will invade the territories of Arkansas and Missourians. New 81 Chinese network update. The fastest mobile terminal, https:// for the Chickasaws. They still have troubles now. If there weren't Missourians and Arkansas blocking them from the north and the west, they would have crossed the river and migrated to the west. New 81 Chinese network update. The fastest computer terminal, https:// who wants to face a powerful Cherokee? Therefore, the current relationship between the four tribes, especially the relationship between the Chickasaws and the Arkansas and Missourians, is very delicate. Now that it is so easy to have such an opportunity, and there is such a generous reward, the Arkansas and Missourians will naturally not let it go. Arkansas and Missourians are making trouble in the lower reaches of Big Bend. The most unlucky nature is the Chickasaws living in this area. Most of the Cherokee tribes live in the middle or upper reaches of Big Bend. The Chickasaws naturally don't want to see their people being looted and slaughtered by a group of outsiders, so the Chickasaws now don't care about looking for the Cherokee tribe. Instead, they launched an action against the Arkansas and Missourians. A battle began so suddenly, the blood water even turned a Big Red Bend. Countless wild wolves were attracted, and crocodiles hiding in the swamp and the edge of the Big Bend also appeared. They can't wait to enjoy this sudden gluttonous feast. Chapter 221, Cigarette. The Stone Bear, hundreds of miles away, naturally did not know the reward order issued by the French, and he did not know that in that area, the warriors of several tribes had already paid for the reward order and some more important reasons. Killed with red eyes. If the Cherokee knew about the situation there, they only needed to send a large army, and they would be able to eliminate the Chickasaw easily. After all, the Chickasaws, Arkansas, and Missourians have already been smashed. At this time, if the powerful Cherokees intervene, they will surely achieve a major victory. It's a pity that the Cherokees in the depths of the Appalachian Mountains didn't know the news. Maybe I know, but I don't care. In fact, some Cherokee tribes that are relatively close to the Chickasaws have also heard some news about this aspect. But one thing is to pass the news to the royal courts or the Red City Alliance. It is a comparison at this time. Difficult things. After all, at this time, the scope of the swamp has expanded a lot, and the journey is difficult. 81.8. 1z.co. The second reason is that because the swamp continues to expand, those Chickasaws just want to attack the territory of the Cherokee tribe and they can hardly do it. Those swamps that begin to expand in the spring and then slowly shrink until late autumn are the best natural barriers between the two tribes. In the past, most of the battles between the Chickasaws and the Cherokees took place during the period from late autumn to the beginning of spring. It was not that they were unwilling to fight when the weather was warm. It was true when the weather was warm. It was the time when the swamp was the largest. At this time, there was no large-scale battle between the two tribes. New 81 Chinese network update. The fastest computer terminal, https:// in winter, the large swamp between the Chickasaw and the Cherokee has shrunk a lot, but winter is not a good time for large-scale military operations, so every winter, the Cherokee almost never large-scale military operations will be launched. The Chickasaws can only carry out small-scale sneak attacks, including the extermination of the Long-Hair Cattle tribe and the Pumpkin Bay tribe in late autumn last year. This is also the main reason why the Chickasaws are obviously weaker than the Cherokees, but they still live tenaciously in that area without being expelled westward by the Cherokees. This large swamp almost cut off the Cherokees' hope of destroying the Chickasaw. You must know that since the Cherokees moved south to Monongahela in the depths of the Appalachian Mountains, they have begun to expand outward. They first drove the Pointons out of the Appalachian Mountains, and then expanded southward, driving away the Chickasaw and Yuchi who originally lived in the Great Smoky Mountains. The Yuchi climbed the Great Smoky Mountain and migrated southward. The tall Great Smoky Mountain became a natural barrier between the Cherokee and the Yuchi. The relatively weak Yuchi also relied on the obstacle of the Great Smoky Mountain. The South has gained a firm foothold again. The Chickasaws were more unlucky. They were forced to move west. As a result, the Arkansas on the west bank of the river prevented the Chickasaws from moving westward, and the Missourians in the north also looked at the Chickasaws. If it weren't for the blockage of this large swamp, plus the Cherokees, after driving away the Yuchi and Chickasaws, and then targeting the Missourians in the northwest, perhaps the Missourians would have been wiped out. Chickasaw. Know that there is no big swamp as a barrier between the Missourians and the Chickasaws, and the Chickasaws are weaker than the Missourians. It's just that the Missourians were also out of breath by the mighty Cherokee. They didn't have time to take care of the Chickasaw in the south. Therefore, those Cherokee tribes who have learned some news are now just sitting on the mountain and watching tigers fighting, while temporarily uniting to defend against the enemy's sneak attack. They live on the border between the two tribes all year round, and naturally know that their tribe cannot launch large-scale military operations against those Chickasaws at this time. That's why Shi Xiong didn't know the series of things that happened over there. Besides, even if he knew it, he wouldn't get involved in the past. Although the French didn't know who slaughtered their soldiers, Shi Xiong knew in his heart that he wouldn't get up and get in trouble at this time. Although the French were defeated and lost almost all the colonies in the New World of North America, the skinny camels were bigger than the horses. Compared with the French, the Gaoshu tribe was a praying mantis standing in front of a chariot. At this time, he passed by stupidly. It was simply a mouse licking a cat. And Shi Xiong was also very busy at this time, and he didn't have the mind to pay attention to what happened over there. Now the people in the tribe are busy with their heels touching their heads, and the four great alchemists are also busy with their own affairs, so Shi Xiong decided not to let himself idle. He decided to slap the cigarette out. To get a cigarette, the two conditions that must be met are cigarette paper and shredded tobacco. Tobacco is easy to say. A lot of tobacco leaves are planted near the Gaoshu tribe. Although the tobacco leaves need to go through several steps in the process of turning tobacco into tobacco, it is difficult for the stone bears. In the township where Shi Xiong's hometown was in the past, planting tobacco leaves is a major economic income of the local people. It is said that long ago, because of the suitable climate and suitable soil, tobacco was planted for many years in my hometown. Even when Shi Xiong traveled to this sage, there were still many people growing tobacco leaves in his hometown. www.wuxiasput.com. When Shi Xiong was a child, smokers in the village smoked tobacco leaves from their own land. After the meal, a large group of people holding dry pipes or rolling cannons, hand-rolled cigarettes, will appear in the streets and alleys of the village to swallow clouds and fog. There are old and young, men and women, and the scene is spectacular. What I know is that a group of villagers smokes and talks about the mountains, bragging and defeating the fire, and those who don't know think that a group of gods are there to flee. Shi Xiong's addiction to cigarettes has been nurtured since childhood. Although the tobacco leaves smoked by the group of people in their hometown cannot be compared with the tobacco shredded with various spices produced by the cigarette factory, the shredded tobacco cut through simple fermentation actually tastes good. The shredded tobacco made at home is not as mellow as the shredded tobacco produced by the cigarette factory, but it is so powerful that you can smoke one cigarette from the cigarette factory. So when I was young, Shi Xiong always followed the elders in the family to make tobacco. He naturally knew how to process the tobacco. Even after going to work, Shi Xiong had seen several manual cigarette machines from the late Qing dynasty and the early Republic of China in the museum, and he personally maintained this kind of equipment with a history of more than a century. It's just that although this cigarette paper stone bear knows how to make it, it's really troublesome to make it. But no matter how troublesome Shi Xiong is, I have to get it. Cigarettes occupies a very important position in Stone Bear's plan, even more important than refined table salt. Cigarettes and variants of cigarettes are also important methods for dealing with Europeans in the future. In addition, it is now the spring season and the temperature is up, so Ashikama decided to start making cigarettes. Chapter 222, ADN and number 039s Papermaking. Papermaking is no longer a mysterious craft in this era. The European papermaking industry is now very developed. First release https://https:// The raw materials, craftsmanship, additives and other things of papermaking are actually relatively transparent things. Ishikama has never made paper in his previous life. He only understands the process of papermaking and the ratio of raw materials and additives. These things are still what he learned on the internet. In his previous life, Shi Xiong once traveled with a colleague of the unit to that colleague's hometown, and that colleague's hometown was far away in the land of Bagi. The experience of that colleague is similar to that of Shi Xiong. He was born in a poor and backward mountain village, and then through his own efforts, he was admitted to university and finally entered the museum. And compared to Shi Xiong's hometown, although the scenery of that colleague's hometown is more beautiful, but the economy is far behind. After all, the mountain villages in the land of Bagi were far from comparable to those in the developed provinces at that time. The neighbors of that colleague's hometown make their own paper, using the locally grown dan bamboo as raw materials. Of course, the paper produced by this kind of small handcrafted workshop cannot enter the market in big cities. Most of the paper made by others is of that kind. Yellow paper can be sold in local villages and towns. At that time, Shi Xiong was very interested in that small paper mill, and he even personally operated it with the owner of the house. After coming back later, he learned more about the papermaking process on the internet. New 81 Chinese network update. The fastest mobile terminal. https:// Thanks to Shi Xiong's good memory, he still remembers things about papermaking. And to Shi Xiong's surprise, David Adian volunteered to help Shi Xiong make paper when he learned that the boss was preparing to make paper, because this guy can also make paper. Well, it's not papermaking like Shi Xiong. David Adian has really done papermaking work. Although David Adian's family is a declining noble, there is nothing left in his family. Compared with Brother Gay's family, the family background of the Adian family, also a declining noble, is much stronger than that of Brother Gay. At the very least, the Adian family also owns a small paper mill, which is about the same size as the handmade paper mill that Shi Xiong has seen. Boss, you are good at doing other things, but if you talk about papermaking, I think I am better than you. David Adian looked at the people who were digging holes under the command of the Stone Bear with a smile, said to Shi Xiong, "You can die if you don't brag." Shi Xiong squinted at this guy who is now more and more arrogant. David Adian was not worried, and continued to say with a hippie smile, "Boss, what I said is true. Didn't I tell you just now? There is a paper mill in my house. I didn't have a paper mill when I was young. Less help in the paper mill. I know very well about papermaking." "Are you done with things over there?" Shi Xiong did not directly agree to this guy, but asked him what he had to do now. "No." Adian shook his head bluntly, "but those jobs are now led by Kuema. Not to mention, Kuema has a promising future. I think he should be cultivated and trained, and he will do it in the future. Can take over for me." David Adian's main job now is to smelt lead and tin from the ore excavated. Lead and tin are two of the 7 non-ferrous metals first discovered by mankind. Mankind began to use these two metals a long time ago. Is like the bronze ware of ancient China, but it is actually an alloy of copper, lead, and tin. Therefore, the method of smelting lead and tin from ore has long existed. As an alchemist who is proficient in metal smelting, David Adian naturally knows how to smelt lead and tin. In fact, whether it is smelting lead or tin, it is smelted by fire, and the smelting method is similar to that of iron smelting. Moreover, Shi Xiong does not have higher requirements for the purity of lead and tin, so it does not need refining. After these two metals are smelted and mixed according to the ratio, the gun pellets can be made. This kind of thing is very simple for Adian. However, when smelting lead and tin, Adian also told Shi Xiong the good news that the ore found in this lead zinc mine contains not only lead, tin, zinc and other metals, but also a lot of copper, and also accompanied by a lot of silver. This is a normal situation. Copper and silver associated with lead zinc mines are very common. The reason why lead was extracted in ancient times was actually to extract silver at the beginning, and lead was only an additional product of silver extraction. It is naturally a good thing to be able to find silver. At this time, the silver is still relatively valuable, and it is good to be able to reserve more silver. Quick Horse can do that? Shi Xiong asked. No problem, that guy is very good. I am very optimistic about him, and I plan to pass on my ability to him. David Adian is not a fool. On the contrary, he is not only a high IQ, but also a high EQ. He knows the relationship between Kuama's boy and his boss, so he doesn't shy away from teaching some things he knows to Kuama. Adian knows very well that it is obviously impossible to leave here in the near future. Since he can't leave here for the time being, in order to have a better life, he doesn't mind using his knowledge in exchange for better living conditions. Obviously, his approach has been appreciated by Shi Xiong, and it has also achieved some of Adian's goals. At least he is now able to talk so casually with his boss, which is a big improvement. For this kind of careful thinking of Adian, read www.hukanshu.com. Shi Xiong will not care about it. On the contrary, he supports Adian's doing so. In any case, the four of Adian and the others are always outsiders. Maybe they will change their minds and stay here forever, but that is a future thing after all. Who dares to guarantee now? Therefore, through Adian and them, let the young people in the tribe learn more things. This is what Stone Bear most hopes to see. So after hearing these words, Shi Xiong nodded with satisfaction. David, what kind of paper did your paper mill used to produce? What kind of paper? Too much. As long as the customer needs it, we can produce any paper. However, newsprint is the most produced. There are 2 newspaper offices and a printing factory in our hometown. The paper produced by our family is mainly used for printing by this printing factory, for newspapers. So, the paper your family produces is mainly low-grade paper? Adian nodded a little embarrassedly. Newsprint is a kind of low-grade paper, even in later generations. Do you know what the paper I produced this time is mainly used for? It is used to make cigarettes. The requirements for paper are very high. Boss, I don't know what your requirements are, but I know that the high grade and resistance of this paper is not in the paper making process, but in the raw materials and additives in it and its processing technology. Boss, till I have the raw material ratio and the additives that you need for this kind of paper, and I promise to get you paper that meets your requirements. Seeing that Eddie's heart was so high and he said so sure, Shi Xiong thought about it, and nodded in agreement. Chapter 223, Additive. Boss, since you said this kind of cigarette paper is very high-end, what raw material should be used? When our paper mill produces newsprint, most of it uses a variety of long fiber grass and cheap wood. Look, when Shi Xiong agreed, Adian looked very excited and began to ask questions. David, the requirements for cigarette paper are relatively high, thin, tough, and white, so you can't use some grass as the raw material for making newsprint. Well, the best raw material for making cigarette paper is wood. Of course, also you can add a small amount of flax, Shi Xiong said. In later generations, there are many raw materials that can be used to make paper. Of course, the best of them is still wood, but there are too few trees in later generations, and people are not enough to plant trees. How can it be possible to use wood to make paper? Only some very high-grade paper will use specially planted fast-growing poplar, fast-growing eucalyptus and other fast-growing tree species as raw materials. Most of the paper types are made from various grasses and a small amount of wood. However, there are too many miscellaneous cells that need to be raised when grass is used as a raw material for papermaking, so it is very difficult to treat the wastewater produced by its papermaking. Moreover, the storage and transportation of grasses are inferior to that of wood, especially grasses are very easy to cause mildew and fire during storage. Why did the following countries put so much effort in renovating small paper mills? It's very simple, because most of these small paper mills use grasses as raw materials for papermaking, which causes too much pollution, but the cost of wastewater treatment is very high. If the scale of the plant is not large, the wastewater treatment will greatly increase the cost. And if the scale of the factory is large, the cost of wastewater treatment will become much lower. This is why the large-scale paper mills are also using grasses as raw materials for papermaking, but the benefits can still be justified. The cost of making paper with wood is high, but the pollution is low. The cost of making paper with grass is low, but the pollution is high. This is a contradiction that is difficult to resolve. At this time, no one cares about the problem of pollution. The most important thing is that most of the area around the Gaoshu tribe and even east of the Mississippi River is covered with a lot of forest. How can the forest coverage rate catch up with later generations? The Amazon rainforest is gone, so there is no shortage of wood at this time. Boss, what kind of wood is used? Presumably the wood used for the cigarette paper should also be very high-end, right? Shi Xiong shook his head and said, the manufacturing process of cigarette paper and ordinary paper is actually the same, and the raw materials used are no different. It is just that some additives that are not used in ordinary paper need to be added in the process of making cigarette paper. It is like, the materials used for the cigarette paper we are going to make can be hardwood and softwood. The specific ratio is about 6:4. Which means 60% hardwood and 40% softwood. These ratios are all learned by Shi Xiong from the internet in his previous life. Just like in the paper industry, softwoods are called softwoods and hardwoods are called hardwoods. Paper made of softwood has good tensile strength, wet running performance, paper machine running performance, tearing and internal bonding strength, while paper made of hardwood has good bulk, stiffness and opacity and has excellent performance in dimensional stability. New 81 Chinese network update. The fastest mobile terminal, https:// high-grade paper, cigarette paper must combine the advantages of two paper-making raw materials. Hearing Shi Xiong's words, Adian stuck his tongue out. My head, this paper-making material is high-grade enough. If all of our paper mills use this material to make paper, our paper mill might have closed down long ago. Shi Xiong smiled and said, your home is yours, and your paper mill is in the old continent. Have you seen so many trees in the old continent? Shi Xiong pointed around. Here, there are inexhaustible trees, you can use whatever you want. Well, there are a lot of pine trees above the mountainside of the Great Smoky Mountains. Whether they are longleaf pine or loblolly pine, they are excellent raw materials for papermaking. And below the mountainside, you can use all those oak trees, and this oak tree is excellent for making paper. David. Adian looked around in the direction of Shi Xiong's fingers, and shook his head again with constipation. Boss, this is too extravagant, so extravagant that I am embarrassed to start. The two laughed loudly. After laughed, Shi Xiong went on to say, in addition to these raw materials, a lot of additives need to be added in the papermaking process. For example, calcium carbonate. Adian was a little confused. Ishikama realized that there was no such thing as calcium carbonate at this time, and at this time, the European paper industry did not seem to use calcium carbonate in the papermaking process, so he said, it's limestone or marble. Oh, Adian just understood. This kind of additive is an important additive in cigarette paper. Well, it is a bit unsuitable to say that the additive is actually a bit unsuitable. It is more accurate to call it the raw material, because in the process of making cigarette paper, nearly 1/3 of the raw materials are made of this kind of limestone or marble. But this thing must be of good quality, and it must be crushed into powder. Boss, this is easy to say, as long as I know what it is. I can get it out. Our tribe has a large stone mill. I heard Jack said that he is going to make a large steel mill to grind some hardness. Larger things. As long as Jack makes a steel mill, the calcium carbonate powder you are talking about is absolutely fine. Yeah, Shi Xiong nodded with satisfaction. In addition to calcium carbonate, you also need to prepare some starch. This thing is both a strengthening agent and a retention aid. and it is a very critical additive. Starch. It's the kind of thing extracted from potatoes, right? Yes, that's the kind of white powdery object. That's starch. I know how to extract this. I have extracted it before. After crushing the potatoes, soak them in clean water. www.wuxiaspa.com to filter out the residue and add a lot of water to let it stand for more than 10 minutes. Pour out the clear water on the bottom. The thing that settles is starch. I have done this before. Okay, you know how to extract starch. There are so many potatoes in our tribe, you can refine more. In fact, this stuff is also very good for cooking. God, can you make delicious meals with this thing? Is it just like the delicious meals you made before? Shi Xiong glanced at the foodie, nodded with a smile, and ate and waved his fist in excitement. David, in the process of making cigarette paper, you need to add a kind of combustion supporting agent. We have this kind of combustion supporting agent here. You can ask Ferguson for it, which is the purified nitrate. When making cigarette paper for later generations, it is necessary to add a combustion aid, which will cause an exothermic reaction when the cigarette paper is burned, which is consistent with the burning speed of tobacco. Most later cigarette papers used potassium citrate, sodium citrate or potassium tartrate or sodium tartrate as combustion enhancers. Of course, there were also potassium nitrate, that is, sodium nitrate or sodium nitrate, as combustion enhancers. The former Shi Xiong can't come out for the time being, but what he has here is that using this thing as a combustion supporting agent is no problem. As for the defoamers and preservatives in the cigarette paper, Shi Xiong didn't plan to add them, and he couldn't figure it out. But as long as there are the most important additives, even if the cigarette paper made is not as good as the cigarette paper of later generations, it is enough to make cigarettes. And the cigarettes made are guaranteed to be absolutely high-end during this period. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224, Test Gun. The 5th month of 1765 came unconsciously. In the Cherokee calendar, the 5th month of each year is called the month of flowers. In this month, blooming flowers can be seen everywhere, and flowers are the most significant sign of this month. The temperature at this time is already very warm. At this time in previous years, the people in the tribe had already taken off their animal skin clothes. Thanks to the cotton cloth seized from the French, the cotton cloth extorted from the Akron fortress, and the cotton cloth brought by Major Hank, now the entire Gaoshu tribe has put on clothes made of cotton cloth. Compared with animal skin clothes, clothes made of cotton cloth far surpass animal skin clothes in terms of breathability and comfort, and the tribes also like this kind of cotton clothes. Shi Xiong's body, as a 17-year-old boy, was the period when the silly boy slept on the cool kang with firepower, so he put on the sleeveless vest early. Although it was still a bit cold in the morning and evening in May, the sufficient firepower made him not care about the coldness at all. Of course, the stone bear who took off his animal skin clothes finally showed his arms, which are as thin as the thighs of an adult man, in front of the tribesmen of the full height tree, attracting countless hot eyes. Shi Xiong himself is very puzzled. This body is obviously a yellow race, but why does it have muscles stronger than most blacks? The most important thing is that Shi Xiong discovered that this body seems to be still developing. Shook his head helplessly, accelerated his walking speed, and soon came to the hillside to the south of the tribe. It's about a mile away from the tribe. Thanks to the popularity of two large saws in the Gaoshu tribe, the original dense woods were forcibly cut out of a large area of land, covering several acres of land. After those trees were felled, they were either used for paper making or used as fuel. If this were to be used in later generations, such a large-scale felling of trees would definitely have a solid foundation. But no one cares at all in this era, which also makes Shi Xiong secretly sigh that ancient times are really much better than modern times in some aspects. The felled clearing was roughly a rectangle, but Ferguson took a fancy to this place, so he picked it up and turned the clearing into a shooting range. The first 10 Ferguson rifles produced by Lieutenant Ferguson will be tested at this shooting range. In fact, the so-called gun inspection is mainly to inspect the strength of the barrel. After all, it is a cast barrel. The strength cannot be compared with the drilled or cold-forged barrels of later generations, let alone the precision-forged barrels. However, the material used for casting the barrel can be regarded as low-carbon steel. The toughness and strength of the material itself are much higher than the wrought iron used in other countries. In addition, the current guns use black powder, which is produced when the gunpowder deflagrates. The gas pressure is far less than that of smokeless gunpowder, so this cast barrel can also be used. And according to Ferguson's analysis, the quality of this cast barrel is even better than the barrel quality of the Brown Beth rifle used by the British now. Although Ferguson has confirmed the quality of the barrel, Shi Xiong still needs further inspection. For example, at a reloading speed of 6 rounds per minute, 60 shots are fired continuously at a normal fixed amount of gunpowder to see if the barrel will explode. For example, the charge is twice or even twice the limit charge of the fixed gunpowder to test the maximum endurance of the barrel. Starting anyway, it's just how bad it is. As long as these 10 Ferguson rifles can withstand this test, there will be absolutely no problem when they are taken on the battlefield in the future. One end of the shooting range was specially made with a wooden frame. A Ferguson rifle was tied to this sturdy wooden frame. Behind the wooden frame stood a row of logs with the thickness of a calf, which was more than 2 meters wide. When testing the gun, a rope was tied to the trigger, and the person stood behind the wooden wall made of logs. The gun is filled with ammunition first, and then the person goes back behind the wooden wall and pulls the rope to fire the ammunition. Anyway, this kind of test gun does not require any precision, but only tests the extreme tolerance of the barrel, so as long as the muzzle is always pointed at the other end of the shooting range, and the whole gun is firmly tied to the wooden frame, even if it is fired, the muzzle will not shift. And that row of wooden walls is used to protect the safety of the experimenters. In the event of a blast during the experiment, the protection of this row of wooden walls is sufficient to ensure that the people behind the wooden walls will not be harmed. Ferguson, as the developer of this rifle, naturally has to serve as the first test person. He still doesn't agree to others who want to do this job. The gun is a good gun, and the barrel is a good barrel. Lieutenant Ferguson knows this well. He can guarantee that even in accordance with the British Force's extreme test methods for guns, this gun will not be exposed to the gun. And he is also very proficient in loading ammunition. Although he has increased the time to run back and forth behind the wooden wall, he can't say to load 6 rounds in 1 minute, but it is absolutely no problem to load 11 rounds in 2 minutes. The reloading speed of this rear-mounted rifle is much faster than that of the front-mounted rifle. Even if it is loaded with 5 rounds in 1 minute, the speed is much faster than when the rifles are tested in various countries. Shi Xiong knew that Ferguson was a very responsible person. Since he insisted on being the first test person, let him do it. Shi Xiong and his group stood about 20 meters away from the wooden frame, watching Ferguson Lisso fill up the projectiles and fixed gunpowder, and then quickly ran back behind the wooden wall, pulling the rope, and the next moment, accompanied by there was a loud gunshot, and the surrounding wooden frame where the rifle was tied was enveloped in blue-gray smoke. The terrain here is a little bit higher, plus it's a bit windy today, so when Ferguson ran out from behind the wooden wall for the second refill www.wuxiaspot.com, the smoke had been blown away by the wind. In this way, Ferguson quickly reloaded with a neat reloading speed, basically able to reach a speed of 5 rounds per minute. This speed is a bit slower than that of a human being directly loaded with a gun, but it is also twice as fast as any current rifle. But every 5 shots fired, Ferguson had to clean the barrel with a special cleaning rod. This slowed down the test. This is really no way. In the era of black powder, no matter what gun it is, if you fire a few shots without cleaning the chamber, the residue of the black powder will accumulate in the chamber. If you don't clean it up, let alone fire the gun, if you don't explode, your gun will be of good quality. Generally speaking, the rifles used in other countries are almost always shot to clean the barrel once, but the gunpowder used this time is made according to the perfect ratio provided by the stone bear, so it is better to shoot 5 shots to clean the barrel. No problem. It takes 60 shots to fire a gun, including the time to clean the barrel. The test time for a gun takes about 20 minutes. It takes more than 3 hours after 10 guns, and then the test of extreme filling of gunpowder is carried out, double the amount of powder, and twice the amount of powder. Anyway, after these 10 guns were tested, it took a full morning. But the good news is that none of these 10 guns have any major problems. It can still maintain good stability under such extreme tests, which shows that this rifle has been successful. New 81 Chinese network update. The fastest computer terminal. https:// Please remember the domain name of the book's first publication. Mobile version reading URL. Chapter 225. Progress is gratifying. The successful test of the new rifle not only made Ferguson and the others ecstatic, even Shi Xiong himself couldn't help but feel a little smug. It's been more than 7 months since I came to this world. I have been so busy with so many things, and now I finally have a decent achievement. Compared to salt making, oil pressing, and wine making, it is Shi Xiong's proudest thing to develop a rifle that is at least 10 years ahead of this era. Steel making, refining nitrous oxide, purifying sulfur, smelting lead and tin, improving broaching machines, and even the all-metal machine tools currently under development, all of these are to lay the foundation for these 10 new rifles. And the success of the test of these 10 new rifles also proved that all that was done before was not done in vain. In other words, the current Gaoshu tribe already has a relatively rudimentary industrial foundation. The next thing Shi Xiong needs to do is to continue to expand the industrial foundation of the Gaoshu tribe in terms of depth and breadth on the premise of consolidating this foundation. Development of, for example, the development of alloy steel, the development of all-metal machine tools, and the erection of water wheels are all about expanding our industrial base toward depth. As long as an all-metal machine tool is developed, even the simplest machine tool, coupled with the successfully developed alloy steel, steel processing in the future will not be as difficult as it is now. The erection of the water wheel is a work of liberating manpower. At present, almost all the work of Gaoshu tribe is done with manpower. As the so-called manpower is sometimes poor, Shi Xiong has now started to erect water wheels, turning some labor-intensive and long-term repetitive tasks into water power. Motivation. The steam engine has not yet been improved, so the water wheel is the best choice for new power. Now on the bank of the little river to the west of the tribe, 2 water wheels with a height of 10 meters in design are under construction. The old wooden family and dozens of strong tribesmen are building these 2 water wheels. Once the 2 water wheels are successfully built, the development of Gaoshu tribe will usher in a peak period. The hydraulic resources of the little river are still very good. Although the section of the river to the west of the tribe is 40 to 50 meters wide, the water of the little river just roared from the Great Smoky Mountains. The flow velocity in this section of the river is still relatively fast. On the west side of the wharf built by the tribe, there is a 200 to 300 meter river that is very suitable for erecting water wheels. So Shi Xiong has arranged for the old wooden family to start the construction and erection of water wheels. The water wheel is no different from an artifact to the Indians, but for people like the stone bear who traveled from the future and Europeans now, the water wheel is a commonplace thing. Now let alone in Europe, even in colonial cities or towns in the New World, there are many water wheels working both sides of the river. Before the steam engine was improved, the water wheel was the best source of power available to mankind. The cylindrical roller bearing that Jack Williams had produced before was severely criticized by Shi Xiong, and the alchemist from England began to improve the bearing. Apart from his daily research and development of all-metal machine tools and gears, he puts almost all of his energy on the improvement of bearings. In addition, Shi Xiong will remind him from time to time, so in less than within months, this cylindrical roller bearing has been improved to basically meet the requirements of Shi Xiong. With such barely usable bearings, the efficiency of the water wheel will be increased by n times. After all, in this era, Europeans built water wheels without bearings, The main shaft of the water wheel and the support-bearing bushes of the water wheel frame are hard ground. Even Europeans add various greases to reduce friction, but it is always the case, hard grinding. And for the two water wheels erected by the Gaoshu tribe, the most critical water wheel spindle is prepared to use this cylindrical roller bearing modified by Jack Williams. 81.8 1Z.Co. Two large cylindrical roller bearings will be stuck on the casted bearing frame, and the bearing frame will be fixed on the water wheel support frame. Then when the water wheel rotates, when the main shaft of the water wheel rotates, it will drive the bearing to rotate without hard grinding with the bearing bush. The speed of the water wheel is not fast, and the cylindrical roller bearing is made of a relatively large head, so even if the cylindrical roller has some error, after adding grease, the error is within the acceptable range. Especially after the bearings are used, there is less friction between the main shaft and the support frame of the water wheel, and the working efficiency of the water wheel will be greatly improved. Once the water wheel is built, through the transmission of gears, a water wheel can drive several workpieces to work at the same time. At that time, the work that requires a lot of manpower or animal power and lasts for a long time, such as crushing materials, can be completely handed over to the hydraulically driven grinding table, and only one or two people next to it are okay, which can greatly liberate manpower. First release https://https:// There is also a blast equipment that is necessary for iron smelting in a blast furnace, a wind box, which can also be driven by hydraulic power. With gear transmission and bearings, a more efficient crankshaft can be made for transmission. All in all, once the two water wheels are built and tested successfully, www.wuxiaspa.com, then it can be foreseen that more water wheels will be erected on the banks of the Little River to the west of the Gaoshu tribe. On the bank of the French Broad River next to the original Dikingshan tribe, more water wheels will also be erected. The Dikingshan tribe will become the metallurgical base of the Gaoshu tribe in the future, which Shi Xiong has already planned. The water wheel will play a greater role there. Jean Auguste's work is almost done. The work of burning glass is not a difficult task for him. Now in a large wooden house newly built in the middle of the Gaoshu tribe, various bottles and cans and a lot of experimental equipment has been piled up. And under the guidance of Augusta, many tribesmen of the tribe are already able to burn and blow glass. In the next step, this junior laboratory can carry out various chemical experiments. Brotherly cement firing has also had preliminary results. With Shi Xiong's golden fingers, firing cement is not a difficult task. It's like the big pond built by David Adian on the north side of the tribe. It has already used the newly fired cement. This big pond is specially used to soak wood. The raw materials for papermaking will be immersed in this large pool for dozens of days before the next step of processing can be carried out. Therefore, cigarettes will be at least in the past 2 months. But once paper is successfully made, then a steady stream of cigarettes can be produced next. And what makes Shi Xiong most happy is not the progress of work. What makes him the most happy is the vibrant crops spread across the large farmland on both sides of the Little River. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.